Hi everyone, Novels Wonderland here. Welcome back to the channel.
Welcome to Novel Wonderland Naruto Path to Godhood. Chapter 312 to 341, 312, The Chaos of Miwacho. 898 words. Unlike what he had imagined, even from a distance, Hayashi could already smell the gunpowder and smoke of the exiled city of Miwacho. Are there any traces of chakra nearby? He asked, stopping in his tracks, glancing at Himeji beside him. No, she replied softly after scanning carefully with her Byakugan. All right, be cautious. Let's move in and see what's happening. The interior of Miwacho was worse than he had anticipated. Arrows littered the streets, broken blades and shattered hilts lay scattered, and blood mingled with the corpses of the fallen. There are no traces of chakra being used, Himeji observed after carefully inspecting the chaos. That's good, Hayashi said, relaxing slightly. If this wasn't caused by ninjutsu, then the mist ninja probably weren't involved. Still, judging by this level of destruction, it seems the rebellion here is close to succeeding. Himeji suddenly pointed ahead. Someone's coming. Hayashi nodded, standing firmly in place instead of ordering them to hide. Soon, a group of raggedly uniformed figures emerged. Their leader carried a tattered katana, wore only a loincloth, and walked with a cocky swagger. When he spotted the unfamiliar figures in the distance, he waved his sword and shouted a series of commands. The distance was too great for Hayashi to hear, but the others clearly began advancing toward them. As the group neared, the leader's eyes fell on the Leaf Village headbands. He hesitated. Being from the Land of Fire, everyone knew of the Hidden Leaf's reputation, even prisoners who had been isolated for years. He wasn't a fool like the other prisoners, his selection as patrol leader spoke to his cunning. He knew the danger ninjas posed. Yet the soldiers behind him couldn't contain themselves. They surged forward with lewd smiles, clearly having noticed Mikoto and Himeji. A bunch of idiots, he cursed, slowing his pace to observe. If these were skilled ninjas, he could retreat; if weak, he could have his fun. Hayashi smirked and raised a hand. Leave none alive. Yes, sir, Mikoto and Himeji replied, passing him and rushing forward. The result was immediate. Even an ordinary genin could overwhelm these civilians. Hayashi, a seasoned jonin, made the massacre effortless. These people weren't innocent, how many had been bloodstained already? Seeing the overwhelming assault, the leader cursed again and turned to flee down an alley. Where do you think you're going? Hayashi blocked the exit, a sharp, mocking smile on his face. Ninja-sama, this has nothing to do with me. The leader stammered, dropping to his knees. But in the next instant, his katana was drawn, and his aura sharpened. Heh, still a samurai, Hayashi said with amusement. They were 4 or 5 meters apart. The man could close the distance instantly, a speed matching a Chunin-level ninja. Yet he was just a civilian, a pure samurai, a rare, almost tragic specimen. Hayashi observed him, knowing how many talented individuals were wasted outside the villages. In another context, he might have let the man go. But this was Miwacho. The leader's momentary arrogance vanished when his slash was stopped midair. Hayashi simply waved a kunai, blocking effortlessly. Slash again, block again. 3 times it repeated, the man's fury mounting. Yet Hayashi remained calm, twisting his wrist to perfectly deflect each strike. Then Hayashi's Sharingan flared, the red glow illuminating the alley. With a crushing grip, his left hand clamped around the samurai's throat, lifting him off the ground and pressing him against the wall. Ninja-sama, please? I'll tell you everything, just let me go. No need for trouble, Hayashi said, the red light in his eyes flashing again. 2 minutes later, the samurai lay lifeless on the alley floor. Hayashi dusted off his hands and strode out. Outside, corpses were scattered across the street. Mikoto and Himeji waited in the sunlight. How was it? Mikoto asked as he approached. The rebels have trapped the Miwacho guards in the Tenshukaku. It's only a matter of time before they break through. The former daimyo's son is at the shrine now, Hayashi said. Shrine? What is he doing there? Who knows, he shrugged. Himeji asked quietly, what about Ryoma? Hayashi shook his head. That's the problem. The samurai I just met last saw Ryoma 3 days ago. Could he have run away? It's possible, Hayashi said, but let's check the shrine first. The 3 made their way without further effort and soon located the former daimyo's son at the shrine. Hayashi finally understood why the current daimyo hadn't eliminated this potential threat. The boy was utterly useless. The moment he saw the leaf ninjas, he trembled, dropping to his knees. He didn't cry, only tried, and failed, to suppress his fear. Hayashi had expected a scheming, Hamlet-like figure, but instead found a cowardly, trembling boy. His shameful state, yellow liquid seeping between his legs, prompted Hayashi to skip any words and employ the Sharingan to subdue him. A few minutes later, Mikoto asked, "Do you want to kill him?" "No need. Someone else will eventually deal with him," Hayashi replied. "Then leave him here." Hayashi considered for a moment, then smiled. "Tie him up and throw him into the Tenchukaku." "Got it," Mikoto said. She and Himeji bound the boy carefully, even tying a playful bow on the end. Hayashi picked up the rope and walked out of the shrine. "Let's move. The Mist Ninja are probably still waiting for free kills." Chapter 313, Lightning Paths of Choice. 942 words. From the former daimyo's son's memories, the whole affair seemed simple. Ryoma had rallied the convicts of Baker Town, planning a riot in his name. The problem was, neither Ryoma nor the Kirigakure ninja had shown themselves. 3 days ago, they vanished without a trace. Then something even stranger occurred. Team 1 had encountered the departing Kirigakure ninja in the forest and wiped them out. Now, Ryoma's whereabouts were unknown. Yet from the daimyo's son's recollections, Hayashi had learned another critical piece of intelligence. In 5 days, another group of Kirigakure ninja would reach the Land of Fire. The third Hokage's orders were clear: eliminate Ryoma and every invading Kirigakure ninja. But Ryoma had disappeared, and the mission remained unfinished. Hayashi could not return to the village yet, or the assignment would be considered a failure. Thus, he had no choice but to lie in ambush along this stretch of coast, waiting for the Kirigakure ninja to appear. For some reason, though, he felt as if the entire situation was manipulated from the shadows, steeped in conspiracy. Gazing at the sun filtered through white clouds, a terrifying thought struck him: the worst possible scenario. Don't tell me. Madara has set his sights on me. And this is a repeat of the battle at Canopy Bridge. Hayashi pressed his temples, feeling the headache pulse. It was only a guess, admittedly pessimistic, yet he was already here. He couldn't order a retreat. Only a thief works every single day. Whoever stayed on guard constantly? Madara could hatch plots like a ghost from underground at will, but Hayashi couldn't abandon every mission that felt off. If he did, he might as well go home and raise pigs. Still, he wouldn't sit idle. Whenever he undertook a task, he always planned the retreat before the advance. With that in mind, he retrieved all the intertwining explosive tags he had accumulated over the years. If things went south, he'd carve a bloody path out, no matter what. I've worked too hard all these years not to end up as Madara's pawn. Seeing him lost in thought, Mikoto and Himeji quietly rose and left. The three had not yet had dinner, and Hayashi hadn't slept since the day before. The girls went to the sea to see if they could catch some fish for supper. Afterward, the boy could finally rest. After a simple fish soup, Hayashi stopped overthinking, crawled into the tent, and slept. Tonight's watch would fall to Mikoto and Himeji. When he awoke, it was already late morning. Walking onto the beach, he saw Mikoto practicing Kaidori. She was far enough away that she hadn't disturbed his rest. Cratered-san showed the intensity of her training. Can your chakra handle this level of exertion? Hayashi asked quietly. Because of the pressure he radiated, Mikoto trained harder than even Minato had at her age. Where others showed standard diligence, she pushed herself mercilessly, otherwise her arm wouldn't have given out so quickly. I'm being careful, Mikoto said, dispersing her lightning chakra as he approached. Sweat dotted her face. At least save some chakra for the mission, Hayashi said, handing her a soldier pill. She nodded and swallowed it, then asked, my Kaidori is stabilizing and becoming more precise. What's the next step? Isn't that a bit fast? He asked. I'm just setting a direction for now, not starting full training, she replied. Hayashi considered for a moment, then nodded. Words are tricky. Let me show you. One path you've already seen: stop overcomplicating the elemental transformation of lightning chakra and focus on shaping it, he explained. This advanced ninjutsu leans defensive. The Kaidori current forms a protective lightning cloak around the body. As he formed the hand seals, the familiar chirping of thousands of birds echoed across the beach. The Kaidori in his hand shifted, its chakra mass expanding past his arm. With steady control, the Kaidori current grew into a potent defensive field. The other path is a one-way street to destruction, Hayashi continued, dispersing the current and weaving new seals. Push the elemental nature of lightning chakra to the limit, offense-focused. This technique is S rank, called lightning cutter. After the demonstration, he looked at her. Those are the two mainstream routes. You could attempt a hybrid, but that's much harder. So, which path do you want? Mikoto stared at the ground, thinking. Hayashi didn't press for an answer, this would determine her future strength. He walked over to Himeji, who was scanning the surroundings with her Byakugan. A white snake, great white, coiled around her neck. When did you two get so close? Hayashi asked, surprised. It was the first time Great White had shown affection toward anyone besides him. She likes me, Himeji said with a small smile, holding the snake out to him. Anything unusual? Nothing. Hayashi's gaze shifted to Great White nestled in his arms. The snake flicked its tongue and shook its head. Finding the scouting range insufficient, Hayashi formed hand seals again, summoning a swarm of smaller snakes. Though less precise than the Byakugan, their sheer numbers extended his reconnaissance range dramatically. Once satisfied, Mikoto came over from the beach. Quietly, she said, I've decided. Hayashi nodded. Defensive Kaidori Current, or offensive Lightning Cutter? Kaidori Current. Only the living can launch a better attack. Her voice was soft but resolute. She no longer wanted to protect him by strength alone, she wanted to protect herself. Only by doing so could she avoid being a burden in battle. _____ Crescent Moon Ramadan Special. Unlock advanced chapters on my Patreon with 7 days free trial on all tiers. Use code RamadanPass. Link, patreon.com/zphyr. Limited time Ramadan offer, don't miss it. Chapter 314, Tide of Shadows. 912 words. The peaceful days passed slowly, and by the evening of the 5th day, no abnormalities had been detected. After dinner, the small snakes guarding the sea line relayed intelligence, translated by Big White. More than 2 kilometers from the Land of Fire coast, 3 cargo ships were approaching from the Land of Water, but they were not heading toward the port. Is something happening? Mikoto asked from inside the tent. Yes, Hayashi replied, nodding. Cargo ships are coming from the Land of Water. Himeji, can you sense how many enemies there are? Himeji shook her head. The distance is too great, I can't confirm the number. Hayashi paused in thought. Let's move to the shore. Himeji, observe again once we're there. If the enemy numbers are too high, we retreat as planned. Understood. The campsite was only a kilometer from the coast, a short distance for ninjas. The 3 reached the shore in barely a minute. The sea surface was pitch black, and the Sharingan offered little help, so they relied on the Byakugan. After careful observation, Himeji whispered, the enemy is less than a kilometer away. 2 ships are empty, and the 3rd has 8 crew members, all ordinary people. There are also 3 ninjas. Judging by their chakra, they were all Jonin level, and one had exceptionally strong chakra. So few. Hayashi murmured, incredulous. Even if they couldn't win outright, escaping wouldn't be a problem. Could it be this isn't Madara's scheme, and I'm overthinking it? He stared at the dark sea, speechless. For days, he had imagined plots woven by Madara. That man was terrifying, only a handful of people could confront him directly. Hayashi felt both fear and exhilaration. He had already planned contingencies. If a large number of enemies appeared, he would unleash the intertwining explosive tags and retreat, forcing Madara into temporary frustration. Perhaps the old man would even smile mysteriously from the shadows, thinking, you are the successor I've chosen, you are the strongest. The thought sent a thrill through Hayashi. Yet now, realizing the enemy was small, he felt a mix of relief and mild disappointment. All that worry for this? Do we engage? Mikoto asked, seeing the ship's hull emerge from the dark waters. Hayashi nodded. Prepare for battle. With only 3 enemy ninjas, there was no reason to hesitate. He was confident he could handle them, even a brief skirmish with the 3rd Mizukage would have been within reach. He also needed to release the frustration of the past days. HMPH, let these hidden miss ninjas witness my Italian cannon. He formed the hand signs for summoning jutsu, and a towering blaze of fire erupted, nearly lighting the sky. Even in the cold sea, the intertwining explosive tags retained their power. Hayashi did not concern himself with the survival of ordinary crew members, a ninja hardened by war felt no psychological burden. After a moment, he cut the chakra to the tags. The once churning water gradually calmed. How is it? He asked Himeji. The ship has sunk, the enemies are gone, she reported, then froze. No, one enemy is approaching fast. Hayashi was unsurprised. The tags had been placed near the hull, any fast ninja could escape. Soon, two figures appeared in the moonlight, the remaining hidden mist ninja carrying an unconscious child. The ninja running across the water was severely injured, but the child looked pale yet unharmed. Be careful. Don't force the attack if you can't handle it, Hayashi instructed Mikoto and Himeji from the tree. Even at this distance, he could sense the enemy's formidable chakra. Their ability to dodge the explosive tags while carrying the boy proved their strength. Fortunately, they had not noticed the three hidden in the trees. This was the perfect opportunity to strike. With a few hand signs, Hayashi vanished from sight. Himeji and Mikoto crouched, minimizing their breathing and entering full stealth. Sneak attacks against such strong opponents were unwise, he did not take the risk. Lightning release chakra surged through Hayashi midair. With second stage acceleration, his speed maxed instantly. He appeared behind the ninja, Chidori igniting in his right hand. The lightning energy surged through the air, so powerful that even Hayashi felt a slight numbness. The ninja gasped in recognition. Chidori. Hayashi was surprised. The enemy recognized the technique instantly. Though Hidden Mist was one of the 5 great nations, it had remained isolated overseas and hadn't participated in the Great War. Most ninjas there had no first-hand knowledge of the conflict. The battle commenced. Their eyes met, and a genjutsu from Hayashi pierced the ninja's will. Yet he chose not to press the attack further, leaping away instead. From behind, a sharp sonic boom rang out. Water release, water gun technique. A narrow jet of water shot toward him. Hayashi had not anticipated being put on the back foot so quickly. The gloomy weather had masked the presence of a water clone, demonstrating the opponent's extraordinary skill. Mid-air, he was hit and quickly used substitution jutsu, landing just as more water jets fired behind him. The enemy's battle awareness and control of ninjutsu were flawless, perhaps even surpassing Orochimaru's mastery. They had also avoided the explosive tags while running on the water surface. Kage level? Hayashi thought, stunned. What had happened to the plan to vent frustration and show my power? How did the enemy react so flawlessly? Could it be that the era where Kage-level ninjas dominate and jonin are comparatively weak is truly arriving? Chapter 315, Clash in the Mist. 772 words. Hayashi had hit a brick wall in an instant, yet he did not choose to retreat. He had even faced the third Kazekage, hailed as the strongest in the Land of Wind. Would he fear this unknown hidden mist ninja before him? This mindset reflected the confidence of a truly battle-hardened fighter, forged through countless encounters. In an instant, Hayashi adjusted his state, adrenaline surging. Bang, bang, bang. Several ordinary water release attacks struck the beach in rapid succession. The streams were narrow, finger-thick, yet each hit with the explosive force of a miniature cannon. The home field advantage clearly amplified the enemy's power. Hayashi did not linger after landing. He dove deep into the forests of the Land of Fire. His water release was strong, but the hidden mist ninja skill far outmatched him on the open sea. Moving into the forest would at least level the playing field. The enemy chuckled softly and accelerated, giving chase effortlessly. Hayashi's speed, enhanced by second stage acceleration, left after images across the forest floor. Each time his foot struck a tree, a burst of chakra propelled him forward, slightly increasing his already peak velocity. Yet, glancing back, he saw the ninja following like a shadow, perfectly calm. This was no mere confidence, it was overconfidence. At least, he had achieved one goal, drawing the battle away from the coast, neutralizing the opponent's home field advantage. The chase continued briefly. Hayashi gauged the distance, grabbed a branch, swung 180 degrees, and used the momentum to pounce toward the enemy. But no sensation of kunai-piercing flesh came. The ninja had vanished into a puff of smoke. Immediately, a dense, rolling mist spread across the battlefield, turning the already dim forest into near-total darkness. Silence. Hayashi's first instinct, even the faintest whisper of wind had vanished. The forest felt like a cage, with him as the only occupant. The true silent killing technique. He gripped his kunai tightly, sharing and spinning, waiting for the enemy's next move. Suddenly, an attack stabbed behind him. Metal clashed, ringing sharply. The ninja vanished into the mist again. Wind release, multigrade breakthrough. Several whirlwinds erupted from Hayashi's mouth toward the enemy's last known location. The mist thinned briefly, shredded by the cutting force, only to close in again. Hidden mist ninjas were notorious for this. As long as chakra flowed, their mists would fill the battlefield again, no matter how much wind scattered it. Hayashi observed, predicting the next wave of attacks. Without hesitation, he sprang from a branch. Water release, water gun, water drill. A dozen concentrated water jets shot toward him. He had already dodged, forming hand signs midair. Wind release, wind wall. A spinning wall of wind formed before him, shredding incoming water bullets into harmless droplets. The hidden mist ninja's skill was astonishing. His battle awareness, control over ninjutsu, and defensive foresight rivaled any he had seen. Even after years of training under the first and second Mizukage. Konoha truly is a cradle for geniuses, Hayashi thought. The enemy's killing intent flared, yet he held back. This was not the land of water, and killing Hayashi outright could draw retaliation from Hiruzen Tsurutobi. It was not worth the risk. I will restrain him first, the ninja murmured. A colossal water release, great exploding water colliding wave erupted, forming a massive ellipsoidal prison around Hayashi. For the first time, Hayashi felt genuinely pressed. Nawaki's water release paled in comparison. Hee, stubborn Konoha brat, the ninja chuckled, watching him struggle. Few could escape this technique. Release him, or I cannot guarantee his safety, a cold voice cut through the mist. The ninja turned. Two figures appeared, one holding a child by the collar, the other observing with Byakugan. He did not panic, smiling instead. Heh, quite capable. Since he's in your hands, my water clone is defeated. Explosions erupted on the ground, punching a hole in the giant water prison. Hayashi rushed through, escaping the trap. The ninja raised hands in surrender. I lost this round. We should stop here. Hayashi halted, recognizing the futility of continued combat. The man before him was a genuine Kage-level expert, far beyond ordinary reckoning. Exhausted but alert, Hayashi watched as the ninja spoke again. Can you return the child? Hayashi signaled Mikoto, who tossed the unconscious boy to them. I should introduce myself, the ninja said, hoisting the child onto his shoulder. You wouldn't recognize my name even if I told you, but most call me the Sandai Mizukage. ______. If you'd like to read advanced chapters, they're available on my Patreon with a 40% discount and 7 days trial before getting charged. Code, Ramadan Pass. patreon.com/zphyr. Chapter 316, Mizukage's arrival. 955 words. The hell with the third Mizukage. Hearing the ninja's self-introduction, even Hayashi felt a surge of surprise, and Mikoto and Himeji weren't any less shocked. Had they ever seen a Kage venture out with only 2 jonin? Well, technically, there was precedent. The 5 Kage had once traveled to the Land of Iron with only a couple of guards. These were fighters relying entirely on their own strength, bold and unafraid of attacks. Hayashi reflected, aside from reckless prodigies like Sasuke, who would dare confront the 5 Kage? And yet, would a Kage, by nature a figure of immense responsibility, really travel secretly to foreign lands at night? If Hayashi were to become the 4th Hokage someday, sneaking into the Land of Wind unnoticed, the Sand Ninja at the borders would have to attack first without knowing his identity. It was a simple rule of survival. Earlier encounters with hidden mist ninjas and insights from the former daimyo's son made it easy for him to mistake the Mizukage's presence for enemy reinforcements. Now, however, it seemed this was not a mistake, it was deliberate. Someone had led him here to encounter the Mizukage. Hayashi's thoughts were tangled, but he quickly reported the situation to the 3rd Hokage. A village's Kage arriving in the field was not something a lower-level ninja could handle alone. Soon, a message returned through the summoning technique. Bring the 3rd Mizukage back. I will send ANBU to meet him. The arrival of a village Kage was no small matter. The 3rd Hokage had not expected the hidden mist village, which had stayed out of the last great ninja war, to take interest in this Chunin exam. Even the Mizukage himself had arrived personally. Despite the distance and historical isolation of the hidden mist village, the 3rd Hokage, as an ambassador of peace, could not ignore this gesture. All right. Hayashi nodded at the Mizukage in front of him. Konoha's long-distance communication via summoning technique is impressively convenient, the Mizukage remarked, sighing, as he led the still unconscious child toward Konoha. With a moment to spare, the Mizukage asked curiously, you broke through the water-severing wave using mutually multiplying explosive tags, correct? Hayashi nodded. Since the technique's name had been spoken, there was no need to hide it. I didn't expect to see this trick again after the 2nd Hokage, the Mizukage said, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. Then, he changed the subject, you seem to anticipate my landing. The attack before disembarking hadn't been coincidental. The Mizukage didn't believe it was luck that Hayashi and his companions noticed. He had deliberately avoided the port to remain discreet. The timing seemed suspicious. Hayashi considered this. Some issues occurred in Mihua Town recently. We were ordered to investigate and found traces of hidden mist ninjas. That's why we came. Some time ago? Hidden mist. The Mizukid's brow furrowed in surprise. He had assumed his location was leaked by village spies. A rogue ninja? Hayashi doubted it. What if it was an elite jonin from a powerful family, accompanied by 2 chunin? Hayashi offered. No one would believe that such talented individuals would be rogue ninjas. Village life provided stability, benefits, and protection. Why abandon all of that? The Mizukid shook his head. Impossible. Only my own team left the Hidden Mist village recently. Hayashi smiled but remained silent. Either the Mizukid was unaware of some events, or he was somewhat disconnected from his own people. From observation, the Mizukid seemed good-natured. In the earlier fight, he had avoided attacking Hayashi's vitals. Hayashi had used the explosive tags to defeat 2 of his subordinates. Perhaps necessity alone restrained him. By the way, Lord Third Mizukid, why come to the Land of Fire at this time? This child is called Kagaya Castle, the Mizukid said, holding the unconscious boy. He is my disciple. You can see he has yet to awaken. Hayashi nodded, initially thinking the fright was overblown, but the Mizukid's tone confirmed there was something unusual. You are from the Ucha clan, correct? You would know of bloodline ailments. The Kagaya clan is highly susceptible to these conditions. Could it be? Hayashi asked, surprised. Yes. This child awakened his Shikosumiaku too early, resulting in a congenital bloodline disorder. Hayashi considered this. A 6- or 7-year-old awakening a deadly Kekkei Genkai, similar to an Ucha opening the Sharingan at 6, was an extraordinary prodigy. Any responsible mentor could not allow such a genius to die young, and the Mizukid had come personally to seek treatment. Of course, the Mizukid continued, the incident was sudden. I did not have time to send ninja ahead. I rushed here to report while en route, and unexpectedly encountered your ambush. Hayashi asked, is teacher Tsunade currently in the village? The Mizukid's understanding of local information seemed precise. When I left, she had gone temporarily, but she should have returned by now. That is reassuring. With the medical scent present, I can rest easier. Hayashi raised an eyebrow, noting that Orochimaru would have keen interest in such a case. Actually, Tsunade is best with battlefield injuries, but someone else is more adept with rare, complex ailments. The Mizukid's eyes widened. Someone in Konoha surpasses Tsunade. Yes. My sensei, Orochimaru, is an expert in these areas. The Mizukid narrowed his eyes, reconsidering intelligence reports. Then Hayashi added, unable to resist, Uncle Jiraiya has also begun learning medical ninjutsu. Mikoto and Himeji stared blankly, black question marks practically floating above their heads. Hayashi grinned and continued, although he realized medicine couldn't save the ninja world, so he abandoned it for literature, using his pen like a blade, hoping to awaken every ninja with vivid, provocative stories. Mikoto and Himeji went silent, unable to respond. Chapter 317, The Kagaya Mission Debrief. 876 words. 2 days later, Hayashi finally returned to the Hidden Leaf Village with Mikoto and Himeji. The arrival of a village Koge should have been a major event, yet due to the third Mizukid's special request, it was handled quietly, without public fanfare. Even so, when Sarutobi Hiruzen personally welcomed them along with 3 senior advisors, the village buzzed with speculation about the identity of this high-ranking visitor. For Team 1, however, the matter was irrelevant. Hayashi had left the ANBU escort unit the previous night and returned first, ensuring that Sarutobi Hiruzen was informed in advance. The mission's unusual circumstances, including the encounter with the Mizukid, required a detailed report to prepare the third Hokage mentally. After listening, the third Hokage muttered to himself, recalling that Team 1's very first mission had triggered the Second Great Ninja War. Now, a similar risk had emerged. If Hayashi had been accidentally killed by the Mizukid, a war against the Hidden Mist village might have erupted. A cold sweat ran down the third Hokage's face. He had once thought Nawaki was as naturally gifted as Tsunade, who seemed born to gamble and win. Now he realized that Nawaki's innocence was no match for the calculated cunning before him. Hayashi was the little white rabbit, but the Mizukid represented the big bad wolf. Puffing on his pipe, the third Hokage thought, even if all the village jonin die and missions pile up like mountains, I cannot allow Hayashi to go on missions anymore. Feeling the Hokage's intense gaze, Hayashi shivered and asked, Hokage-sama, may I return now? You may, the third Hokage replied, taking 2 sharp draws from his pipe. The ANBU will watch over Ryoma. You performed admirably on this mission. Rest for now, no missions are required immediately. Though Hayashi appreciated the reprieve, he couldn't shake the feeling that the Hokage was secretly displeased. With the mission payment received, he returned to his house under the quiet moonlight. The next morning, loud knocks at the door startled him awake. Half asleep and clad in pajamas, he shuffled to the entrance in slippers, only to find an unexpected visitor, Orochimaru. With heavy dark circles under his eyes, a white lab coat, and the unmistakable smell of formaldehyde, the snake-sensei entered the small house. Had he stayed up all night again? Hayashi thought. After washing up, Hayashi brewed tea and brought it to Orochimaru, who was engrossed in a scroll. Your father's mastery of genjutsu is remarkable, Orochimaru said, setting the scroll aside. He had picked it up from the shelf on a whim and gleaned insights from a mere glance, demonstrating Kagami's genius. Hayashi had clearly inherited this talent. Interesting how talent passes through bloodlines, isn't it? Orochimaru hinted. Hayashi smiled. Indeed. Sensei, have you discovered why this happens? Orochimaru shook his head. I first thought it was a simple genetic mutation, etched into the genes and inheritable indefinitely. But then I saw abilities like magnet release, which can be learned later, and realized inheritance isn't always that simple. Hayashi regarded him with admiration. While everyone knew about bloodline limits, only Orochimaru tried to systematically understand their origin. He was truly the greatest scientist in the ninja world. A bold thought struck Hayashi. Could devil fruits be Orochimaru's mass-produced experiments on bloodline limits? After all, in later years, Orochimaru grew bored of the ninja world's conflicts and might cross into other realms to experiment further. For someone obsessed with immortality, almost anything was possible. Shaking off his imagination, Hayashi asked, have you seen that Miss Ninja yet? Yes, Orochimaru said matter-of-factly. I just returned from the morgue. Yamanaka Tazu is conducting a memory search on the Kagaya clan ninja. Did you inform the third Hokage? Hayashi asked. Yes. Once the analysis is complete, the body will be returned. Thank you for bringing the material. My previous research had nearly concluded, and this was perfectly timed. Hayashi prepared to offer polite thanks, but Orochimaru continued. Chen, I'm not criticizing, but you're really terrible at medical procedures. Can a corpse be preserved this way? By destroying the heart, you limit the experiments I can conduct. Hayashi remained silent, unsure how to respond. Orochimaru finally sighed after sipping the slightly cold tea. Encountering a Kagaya clan ninja was a rare opportunity. He regretted refusing the mission earlier, claiming to be too busy. If it were me, Orochimaru muttered, I'd have used the Kagaya incident to rush into the land of water for more materials. Such an opportunity wasted. Hayashi hadn't known Orochimaru thought this way, and instead asked, you already know about the Kagaya child's bloodline disease, right? Orochimaru nodded. Yes. If the third Mizukage hadn't been present, I would have started the procedure immediately. Can it be cured? Difficult, Orochimaru replied. Not even you or Tsunade-sensei. No, he sighed. Despite being called a disease, it isn't truly one. It accelerates bodily deterioration, making it appear fatal. Hayashi's brow furrowed in confusion. Orochimaru continued, bloodline disease is an extreme form of a bloodline limit. Both are corpse bone pulse, but one with the disease wields vastly greater power. The problem is the body cannot endure this, drastically shortening their lifespan. In short, Orochimaru said regretfully, I have no solution. That child's fate is sealed. Chapter 318, Secrets and Conspiracies. 973 words. According to Orochimaru, the Kagaya clan child was beyond saving, yet he had no intention of revealing this directly to the third Mizukage. Medical ninja treat the sick and save the dying, but we must also consider the family's ability to accept the news, Orochimaru muttered. Hayashi couldn't help but think, acceptance ability, Konoha really is full of saints. Of course, Orochimaru's true motive was to study the rare material a little longer, but out of political sensitivity, he had informed the third Mizukage of certain risks beforehand. It reminded Hayashi of hospital procedures from a previous life, where families signed liability waivers before surgery. Whatever happened afterward was not the doctor's responsibility. The third Mizukage didn't mind this. Before coming to Konoha, he had learned enough about the pathology and mortality rate of the bloodline disease. If he hadn't exhausted every other option, he wouldn't have traveled thousands of miles to another village seeking medical help. This was the child's final chance. If it failed, Ninja would retrieve him during the upcoming Chunin exams. He wasn't concerned that Konoha would refuse. The village's reputation and Hiruzen Tsurutabe's judgment ensured cooperation. In any case, I'll leave him to you, the third Mizukage said, giving a few instructions before departing under Hiruzen Tsurutabe's guidance. Afterward, the two leaders exchanged cordial views on leaf-mist relations and mutual concerns, reaching an important consensus. The third Hokage emphasized that in the 32 years since their diplomatic ties, the two villages had respected each other, setting an example for peaceful coexistence. He also praised the Mizukage's decision to avoid war, calling it a strategy that prioritized the greater good. The Mizukage, in turn, noted that the Hidden Mist village valued traditional friendship with Konoha, and hosting the Chunin exams was a significant step toward advocating peace and multilateral cooperation. After the meeting, they even shared a light-hearted moment, singing a rendition of A Night to Remember, Ninja World version, before the third Mizukage hurriedly departed. Beneath his composed exterior, he was furious. Someone had dared to challenge his authority for the first time in years. Once the Mizukage left, Hiruzen Tsurutabe returned to his seat. A moment later, Homura Mitakado, who had seen the guest off, re-entered the room. "All right, since everyone is here, Koharu, distribute Yamanaka Tazu's report for review," Hiruzen instructed, resting his chin in his hands. Utatane Koharu nodded, pulling a scroll from her pouch and passing it to Danzo and Homura Mitakado. The report was brief, yet the content stunned them. "This is shocking," Homura Mitakado muttered after reading, shaking his head. "Are you sure it's real?" Hiruzen's voice was heavy. This information was extracted from Kagaya Hikari's memories. Homura Mitakado protested, then it could be fabricated. Someone could use genjutsu to create false memories. Danzo interrupted with a cold laugh. Fabricating memories of an elite jonin and fooling Yamanaka Tazu? What kind of genjutsu would that take? Could you or I do it? Homura Mitakado paused but remained skeptical. Just because we can't doesn't mean others can't. I don't believe it's real. Hiruzen Tsurutabe felt a headache coming on and examined the scroll again. The contents revealed a conspiracy among three powerful clans, Kagaya, Yuki, and Hazuki. It suggested that the third Mizukage planned to abolish the Elder Council, centralize power, and govern the Hidden Mist village with an iron fist. The plot involved Kagaya Hikari misleading Konoha Ninja into attacking the Mizukage, potentially sparking a war. Even Hiruzen Tsurutabe struggled to believe it. The third Mizukage, a peace-loving and mild-tempered figure who had never participated in a ninja world war, would hardly act with such brutality. Danzo, however, snorted in disdain. Hiruzen, don't judge by appearances alone. Perhaps the Mizukage knew of the three clans' conspiracy all along and was biding his time, lulling them into a false sense of security. Now that the incident occurred, he's acting decisively. Danzo's excitement grew. The Mizukage, once thought to resemble Hiruzen in nature, now appeared patient and calculating, with philosophies of governance similar to Danzo's. If he were in charge, Konoha would be far stronger. Hiruzen, unaware of Danzo's ambitions, continued worrying about the Mizukage. Their experiences were similar. Both had been mentored by the first and second Hokage and had supported their villages after the second Hokage's death, balancing the influence of numerous clans. If the Mizukage continued this way, the Hidden Mist village would remain neutral even in wartime. Good news for Konoha. Utatane Koharu, silent until now, finally spoke. "What you said makes sense. This matter is highly suspicious, but what does it have to do with us? The Hidden Mist village's problems are theirs to handle. Any internal conflict only weakens their own strength." Hiruzen sighed. "The Hidden Mist village's affairs now affect us." He handed over a letter. "This comes from the daimyo. After the Baker Town incident, he feels insecure and plans to re-establish the 12 Guardian Ninja." Homura Mitakado read it carefully. The daimyo's distrust isn't new. 2 years have passed since the Guardian Ninja were disbanded. It's impressive he held out this long. "But Hiruzen, we must place our own people regardless." Danzo stood quickly. "Hiruzen, leave it to Root. I have confidence." "Enough," the third Hokage interrupted. "I already have candidates in mind. You need not worry." He rubbed his eyes, then added, "This matter ends here. We'll continue monitoring the Hidden Mist village. Next, the Chunin exams are our priority. Koharu, have invitation letters been sent to all villages?" "Sent," she replied. The third Hokage nodded and adjourned the meeting. Normally, he might have worked late into the night, but with Biwako now pregnant, he decided to spend more time with her. ________. If you'd like to read advanced chapters, they're available on my Patreon with a 40% discount and 7 days trial before getting charged. Code Ramadan Pass. Patreon.com/ZPHYR. Chapter 319, A New Era of Peace. 1162 words. Konoha Year 32 would be remembered across the entire ninja world. That September, Konoha decisively defeated the Hidden Sand in the Land of Rivers, capturing the 3rd Kazekage and ending the war first. Soon after, the 3rd Kazekage returned home, and a Sand Rock Alliance contained Hidden Cloud's campaign, confining it within the Land of Waterfalls. Not long after, news of the 3rd Mizukage's visit to Konoha spread. Faced with the Leaf Village's astonishing recovery, Rock and Cloud rushed to the peace table, bringing an end to their hostilities. With that, the Second Great Ninja War finally drew to a close. As the new year arrived, Hayashi watched the snow drift through the sky and sighed. Konoha Year 33 already. 13 years had passed since he first transmigrated into this world. Most of his previous life had faded, yet a few memories remained locked in his heart, impossible to share with anyone. That was why he often felt detached from the world around him. Still, time was the ultimate healer. It could erase everything, though the process was long and painful. Jiraiya, walking beside him, studied Hayashi for a moment before remarking, Orochimaru says sometimes you don't act like a youngster, more like an old man at dusk. Sure enough, he's spot on. Where does a kid get all this melancholy? Do I really? I don't feel it. Hayashi pulled a small mirror from his ninja pouch, tidied his hair, and clicked his tongue. Still as handsome as ever, flawless, a face worthy of an era. Jiraiya pretended to retch. What were you sighing about when you counted the years? Hayashi stayed silent for a moment, then smiled. I was calculating how long the ninja world can stay at peace. Jiraiya shook his head. The war just ended. Fighting won't resume so soon. After the first Great Ninja War, we had more than a decade of calm. Hayashi countered, back then, the ninja world was shattered. It's different now. Take Rock and Cloud. Although hostilities ceased quickly, Cloud never got the victory it sought, and Rock still resents Cloud's sneak attack. Under these conditions, peace won't last. Though Jiraiya understood the logic, he replied, everyone's tired of fighting after so many years. It won't be as bad as you say. Hayashi shrugged. Who knows? The two continued side by side toward the Hokage building. A Jonin meeting was scheduled for today. They had simply run into each other at a crossroads. Just before reaching the building, Jiraiya clapped his hands with excitement. I've got inspiration. I'm putting you in my novel. Hayashi's eyes lit up. The protagonist. Jiraiya curled his lip. How could you be the lead? The lead must be dashing and charismatic, like me. Oh, so it's a trash stream novel, Hayashi muttered. Jiraiya froze. Such audacity. If harming a fellow villager weren't illegal, he'd teach this brat why roses are red. Hayashi ignored Jiraiya's glare. Is the tale of the gutsy ninja finished? You said you'd start it half a year ago. Jiraiya chuckled awkwardly. Don't rush. I'll begin officially later this year. I'll use the protagonist's artistic image, Naruto, to create a positive role, blending literature and ninja to promote the will of fire. When the time comes, support me. By the way, Jiraiya slung an arm over Hayashi's shoulder, grinning, my book's bound to be a hit. How about naming your son Naruto? Hayashi groaned inwardly. No chance. I'm not naming my son after some idea you had while slurping ramen. He thought of Naruto's tragic life, both parents dead, his master killed, a teacher lost and revived, senior comrades perishing, his wife's cousin dying horribly, his best friend attempting to kill him, first love ending tragically, and future wife stabbed before him. Honestly, Naruto's lifelong tragedy began with that name. Jiraiya, clearly disappointed, kept persuading, think it over again, maybe ask Minato, he might agree. He's my disciple. Hayashi snapped, so you're trying every trick in the book to screw me over. The conversation ended there. Hayashi refused to let his son carry that name. Eventually, a helpless Jiraiya planned to try Sakumo next, and if that failed, he'd whisper into the ear of a pregnant again Biwako. Asuma, anyone could tell it wasn't a name that promised long life, nowhere near as striking or refined as Naruto. To avoid further pestering, Hayashi didn't even sit next to Jiraiya at the Jonin meeting. Jiraiya's glare spoke of resentment, but Hayashi ignored it and caught up on sleep. The Jonin meeting dragged on, as expected, long and tedious. Hayashi was prepared and took it in stride. Though not very old, he had spent years inside the system, navigating it smoothly like a seasoned veteran. Near the meeting's end, his precise biological clock woke him, just as the third Hokage addressed the main topic, the Chunin exams. He cleared his throat, sipped water, and began, 2 months ago, I mentioned this to you. I trust you've been preparing. Initially, we planned to invite only Hidden Sand, Hidden Rock, and nearby small villages. Later, the third Mizukage expressed interest in sending ninjas as well. Recently, Hidden Cloud and Hidden Rock ended their hostilities, and the third Reikage sent a letter expressing interest. Excellent, having all four great nations together in Konoha affirms our strength, it shows they still fear the leaf. His voice rose and fell, brimming with excitement. Usually, a Chunin exam is held by one village alone or with a few invited allies. For all 5 great nations to gather, this hadn't happened in years. It showed that the leaf had once again secured its position as the superpower among many. Every village will send its elite. As hosts, Konoha faces challenge after challenge. When submitting the Chunin exam roster, I expect all Jonin to consider their choices carefully. Scanning the room, he continued, let's start with Team 1. The youngest Jonin present, Hayashi, stood without changing expression. Konoha Jonin Hayashi submits for the Chunin exams, Senju Nawaki, Ucha Mikoto, Namikaze Minato. Although Minato was Jiraiya's disciple, he had long since been transferred to Team 1. Hayashi, as leading Jonin, had to file the application. Much like the future Team 7, Naruto might be Jiraiya's pupil, but Kakashi would register him for the exams. All right, next. Konoha Jonin Kato Dan submits for the Chunin exams, Yamanaka Inoichi, Akimichi Choza. The list continued until Tsunade finally woke from her nap. Hayashi broke into a cold sweat, Tsunade was as fierce as ever, and he was dying to know Team 2's submitted list. The Chunin exams are held in squads of 3, if a team was short, it could be combined with others. Kushina's teammates had been reassigned during the war, leaving Team 2 short-handed. Hayashi had asked Kushina about teammates before, but the little fox had brushed it off as a secret. Now, the moment of truth arrived. Konoha Jonin Senju Tsunade submits for the Chunin exams, Uzumaki Kushina, Yakushi Nono, might do way. Hayashi stared in astonishment, this lineup was absolutely domineering. Chapter 320, Public Order in a Fractured Peace. 1,204 words. If everyone were in their prime, Ucha Hayashi reckoned this lineup could absolutely crush the Sannin. Of course, that was nothing more than a passing fantasy. Right now, Kushina was still confined to the village as a fiery little girl, Nono was a rookie who had graduated barely half a year ago, and Might Dai still carried the eternal label of lifelong genin. In other words, the latter two were nothing more than temporary stand-ins. The little fox had only pulled them together in hopes of barely surviving the second round of the Chunin exams with 2 background ninja at her side. Time passed quickly. As April approached, only days remained before the exams began, and shinobi from every village flooded into Konoha. The war had only just ended. With all 5 great nations gathering in one place, it was not unusual for a ninja to suddenly spot the killer of his comrade eating at the next table. If tempers flared, a full-scale clash could erupt at any moment. However, the third Hokage was a man who valued appearances. He would never allow anyone to ruin this political showcase, especially with countless merchant lords present. As a result, martial law was imposed early. Large numbers of Jonin were dispatched throughout the village, lurking in alleyways and rooftops, prepared to suppress any disturbances the moment they appeared. Under these circumstances, Ucha Hayashi, bored stiff within the village, was officially assigned as a public security officer. Hayashi, are we really just going to keep watching from here? High in a tree overlooking one of Konoha's main streets, Hayashi and Himeji observed the situation below. Yes. As long as no trouble starts on this street, we do nothing, Hayashi replied calmly. And if it breaks out somewhere else? Himeji asked with a faint smile, glancing at the boy 3 years younger than her. Not our jurisdiction. Every sector has a Jonin overseeing it. They will handle their own mess. Except they've been making noise over there for a while now, Himeji said, peering into the distance. That area, she added lightly, is under Lady Tsunade's watch, if I remember correctly. Hayashi clicked his tongue. That woman was slacking off again. Activating his Sharingan, Hayashi glanced toward the disturbance. Troublemakers, every one of them. A crowd of shinobi from various villages had already gathered, some even cheering for entertainment. The cheers quickly went to Rosa's head. I really am a born leader. In his mind, the nations had long suffered under Konoha's dominance. If he raised his banner, every genin would rally behind him. Puffing out his chest, he shouted again, apologize. Now. Rosa, why don't we just let it go? Karura tugged at his sleeve, unease clear in her eyes as the crowd grew larger. No chance. This punk is apologizing today. Since you insist, I'll repeat myself. Minato's smile faded. He never backed down when it mattered, especially against former battlefield enemies. You ran into me first. We're already being generous by letting it slide. If you want to fight, Namake's Minato will see it through to the end. Yeah, keep talking and we'll beat you up, Nawaki added eagerly, flexing his arms. Mikoto stood silently, her Tutomo sharing and fixed on the Sand Ninja, her gaze cold and sharp. Beat me up? Rosa laughed mockingly. Everyone, look. Konoha thinks it can bully us wherever it wants. Before he could finish, someone tapped his shoulder. Annoyed, Rosa turned around, only to freeze in place. That face haunted his dreams. A face he would recognize even if it were reduced to ash. Acha Hayoshi, Rosa hissed through clenched teeth. Despite his rage, he did not strike. This was Konohagakure. Mouthing off was one thing. Attacking openly was another. Unfortunately, Hayoshi's first words only made it worse. Who are you? Hayoshi asked casually. Do we know each other? Rosa froze. A moment later, Hayoshi snapped his fingers as if remembering something. Oh, right. You're the one whose right arm I cut off. His gaze flicked to Rosa's arm. Looks like they reattached it. Getting used to it yet? Bastard. Rosa lost all restraint. With a sweep of his hand, kunai-shaped grains of sand shot forward. Too slow. Hayoshi deflected them lazily with a kunai. In the next instant, he stepped forward, grabbed Rosa by the throat with his left hand, and slammed him against the wall, lifting him off the ground. No improvement in 3 years, Hayoshi murmured. You're still this weak. Rosa's mind went blank. Back in the land of rain, they had traded blows. So why was he completely powerless now? What had he been doing all these years? As doubt crept in, Hayoshi's Sharingan glowed faintly. A subtle genjutsu gnawed at Rosa's will. Letting the limp body drop, Hayoshi turned to the crowd. This Sand Ninja attacked a Konoha law enforcement officer. I suspect him of attempting to sabotage the Chunin exams and the Konoha Suna Treaty. He will be taken in for questioning. He glanced at Minato, Nawaki, and Mikoto, who were staring at him in awe, before slinging Rosa over his shoulder and walking away. Karura hurried forward. Please wait. She bowed deeply to Minato. On Rosa's behalf, I apologize. Please don't take him away. She then turned to Hayoshi and extended her hand. Please return him to me. Sorry, Hayoshi replied politely. That's between you and the genin. I don't interfere in their disputes. His tone hardened. But he attacked me. I suspect hostile intent. Anbu needs to verify that. Karura recoiled, fear flashing across her face. Other Sand Ninja quickly pulled her back. Hayoshi swept his gaze across the crowd. Remember this. This is Konoha, not your village. Anyone else looking for trouble? A wave of killing intent crashed down. Several genin nearly collapsed where they stood. Carrying Rosa, Hayoshi moved through the streets. Are you really taking him to Anbu? Himeji asked quietly. No. I'll dump him somewhere. His team will collect him. At a secluded corner, a voice called out. Konoha's yellow flash, don't you think this is excessive? Hayoshi turned to see Manus, the Sand Ninja leader sent to sign the treaty. When he was harassing my comrades, where were you? Hayoshi replied coolly. Manus shook his head. It was a dispute between youths. For someone of your status to act personally, isn't that beneath you? Hayoshi scoffed. Status? I'm 13. Same as the youths you mentioned. And I'm following protocol. If you disagree, take it up with the third Hokage. Manus stiffened. He said nothing more. With that, Hayoshi tossed Rosa into the alley. Even the third Hokage, watching through the crystal ball, fell silent. As the sun set, Hayoshi and Himeji ended their shift. On his way home, Hayoshi spotted Sakumo Hatake, disheveled. Brother Sakumo, what happened? Sakumo sighed. Chio ran into me at lunch. That explained everything. Later, at the Ucha compound, Fugaku found him. "Hayashi, did you see Manus today?" "I did." With the information given, Fugaku hurried off. Watching him leave, Hayashi sighed. Konoha really is a mess. If you'd like to read advanced chapters, they're available on my Patreon. Enjoy 40% off plus a 7-day free trial before you're charged. Use code RAMADANPASS. patreon.com/zphyr. Chapter 321, The First Test, Obedience Above All. 907 words. As the largest political spectacle following the Second Great Ninja War, the Chunin exams naturally drew the attention of the entire ninja world. Whether openly or in secret, every village employed countless methods to sabotage the event. Yet reality proved once again that Konoha remained Konoha. With its overwhelming strength and ironclad control, every threat was quietly eliminated before it could surface. For days later, the Chunin exams began exactly as scheduled. At the designated venue, Team 1 had already arrived. Only at the last moment did Kushina appear, her signature cowlick slightly crooked from oversleeping, accompanied by her two teammates. Might Dai's arrival immediately caused a stir. Among Konoha's genin, almost no one failed to recognize this man. After all, he owned the largest weapons shop in the busiest commercial district. It was precisely because of this that many found the situation hard to accept. "You're telling me a weapons dealer is taking the Chunin exams? Isn't this just bullying?" While Konoha did have its fair share of abnormal genin, those were exceptions. Most were still scraping by with basic kunai use and the three-body technique. Some could not even afford a handful of explosive tags. At this level, equipment alone could decide the outcome of a battle. And Might Dai's equipment was not just superior, it was absurd. 600 billion explosive tags. Who could possibly withstand that? As for the reaction from other villages, it was simpler. They mocked the idea of someone so old still participating in the Chunin exams. Yet despite their whispers, no one dared provoke him openly. The incident involving a Sunagakure ninja being thrown into a trash container had already spread through the genin ranks like wildfire. No one was foolish enough to seek trouble now. Except Rosa. He strode forward arrogantly, surrounded by Sunagakure ninja like stars orbiting the moon. "You'd better be eliminated in the first round," he sneered, "otherwise, I'll kill you one by one in the second." As he spoke, he dragged a finger across his throat. Nawaki was about to retort, but Mikoto, standing behind him, tugged his shoulder and spoke calmly. "Our Jonin-sensei is behind you." Rosa stiffened. Turning around, he found Ucha Hayashi smiling faintly at him. "HMPH, sooner or later, I'll deal with him too," Rosa spat before hastily leading his team away. "Morning, everyone," Hayashi greeted as he walked over. "You're late," Kushina complained, arms crossed. "The third Hokage had an early meeting," Hayashi replied lightly. "That's on me. I'll treat everyone to barbecue after the exams." The group chatted briefly before entry time arrived. Hayashi leaned in and whispered, his tone firm. "Absolutely do not cheat in the first exam." Then he vanished in a blur of movement. The confused group could only hold on to his final instruction. Outside the examination hall, Sakumo Hatake frowned as Hayashi returned. "Was that really necessary?" Sakumo asked. "I just told them not to cheat," Hayashi replied. "That's common sense." Sakumo sighed. "As long as you didn't give them answers beforehand, it's technically fine. Still, your role feels more like a nanny than a sensei." "We've known each other for years and we're close in age," Hayashi said casually. "Looking out for them is normal." Besides, Sakumo Nii picked a great observation spot. He glanced sideways just in time to see Minato and the others enter the room. Sakumo straightened proudly. "Of course. Who do you think I am?" Inside, Tsunade pushed open the door and entered as the chief examiner. Anyone who spent enough time around her knew she was a complete tomboy. Jiraiya's daily beatings were proof enough. So no one was surprised when she slammed a stack of test papers onto the desk. "The exam begins now," she said bluntly. "Anyone caught wandering their eyes will be disqualified." Some examinees complained internally. With her revealing outfit and commanding presence, avoiding distraction was easier said than done. Still, most lowered their heads obediently. Not everyone did. At this age, curiosity and hormones were unavoidable. You, and you. "Disqualified," Tsunade said flatly. "I wasn't looking," a genin at the back protested. If I say you were, then you were. Tsunade crossed the room, grabbed him by the collar, and tossed him out the window. Failure to obey orders means you lack the qualifications of a future Chunin. Leave now unless you want to follow him. 7 or 8 genin stood up reluctantly and exited. Outside, Sakumo sighed. The exams always involve performance filtering. Tsunade's method is effective, if crude. Hayashi nodded. Effective, but far from honorable. The test papers were distributed. 1 hour, Tsunade announced, yawning as she sat down. The seating arrangement placed teammates together, almost inviting cheating. Yet the questions were extremely difficult. Minato read through the paper carefully. Even for him, it was challenging. Mikoto frowned in deep thought. Nawaki stared blankly. As others began subtle attempts to cheat, Minato finally understood. This exam was not about knowledge. It was not about information gathering. It was about obedience. Hayashi's words echoed in his mind. Tsunade's warning followed. A ninja's duty was to follow orders. Minato began writing only what he knew. Mikoto soon followed. Nawaki did the same, unquestioning. Kushina slept. Might Dai remained unfazed. Outside, Sakumo shook his head. You really trust them? I do, Hayashi replied calmly. Just then, Nawaki slapped his thigh loudly. These questions are way too easy. Silence filled the room. Chapter 322, The Price of Disobedience. 1041 words. An hour passed swiftly. Tsunade, seated behind the podium, opened her eyes with uncanny precision, as if an alarm had gone off in her head. One might even wonder whether she had been asleep at all. The wave of cheating had also come to an end. Among the hundreds of Chunin examinees, only about a third had truly refrained from peeking. All right, Tsunade said lazily, I will now announce the list of candidates who passed the first exam. Those who have lost their qualifications may leave. She picked up the list Anbu had just delivered and began reading aloud. When she finished, she added, those who failed, don't be discouraged. You are welcome to participate in next year's Chunin exams. With that, Tsunade turned and walked toward the exit on her own. She looked relaxed. The genin below her did not. Only about 100 names had been called. Nearly a third of the examinees had been eliminated in the first round. The atmosphere instantly grew heavy. Before anyone could voice their dissatisfaction, the most agitated genin was suddenly slammed onto a desk with a loud smack. The examination hall fell completely silent. I ask you, Orochimaru's hoarse voice echoed through the room, who told you that you were allowed to cheat during this exam? Outside the hall, Sakumo Hatake chuckled softly while remaining perched in the tree. Looks like I won't be needed. Inside, faced with the cold-killing intent that Orochimaru had refined on countless battlefields, a few eliminated genin still gathered the courage to stand up. With so many people failing, they believed Konoha would have to give an explanation. Surely they could not all be dismissed so easily. Orochimaru's gaze swept over them. Ninjas have rules. Examination halls have rules as well, he said calmly. If you cannot even follow the rules of an exam, what use would you be as Chunin? Genin may act recklessly. Chunin cannot, he continued. If you cannot understand even this much, then there is no need for you to advance. If you have objections, you may submit them directly to the Hokage. But if you choose to cause trouble and disrupt the remaining exams, then I will not be lenient. He snapped his fingers. Several Konoha Anbu entered through the windows. Escort these genin out. If anyone resists, take appropriate action. I'll leave the rest to you, Tsunade said casually as she passed Orochimaru, exiting without sparing the scene another glance. For her, witnessing the aftermath was far less appealing than finding a place to drink. Orochimaru waited until the hall was cleared before addressing the remaining genin. Let's begin with a few formalities, he said. First, congratulations on passing the not-so-difficult first exam. However, don't celebrate yet. The second exam begins immediately, and the venue will change. With that, he turned and led them out. Up in the tree, Sakumo clicked his tongue. Orochimaru really is suited for handling this kind of thing. If he hadn't stepped in, you would have, Uchiha Hayashi replied calmly. Are you heading back now? Sakumo asked. Hayashi shook his head. I'll watch the second exam with you. Sakumo frowned slightly. Didn't you say it was boring before? Hayashi smiled faintly. I noticed something interesting among the examinees. Interesting? Sakumo raised an eyebrow. Don't tell me you mean Rosa with magnet release. It's not him. Then I can't think of anyone else particularly impressive. You'll see soon enough, Hayashi said. I may even intervene. Sakumo felt a headache coming on. That's not ideal. The third Hokage emphasized fairness. It's fine, Hayashi replied evenly. I'll speak to him directly. He'll agree. His gaze sharpened slightly. That is, assuming I didn't misjudge. Not long after, Orochimaru brought the successful genin to a broad, open training ground. In truth, the first and second exams were conducted back-to-back. There was no rest period. The joint tuning exams were, at their core, a political performance. The third exam was the finale. Few truly cared about the first 2 rounds, and many even complained they took too long. Standing before the genin, Orochimaru announced the rules without expression. This is a flat terrain training ground within Konoha. All present genin will be divided into 13 large teams based on their respective villages. You will survive here for 5 days. A map will be issued, marking your camp's location. At the center of each camp is a flag. You must defend your own flag while attempting to seize others. Each participant will also carry a small flag. If your camp flag is captured, your entire team is immediately disqualified. After 5 days, rankings will be determined by the number of small flags obtained. The bottom 2 teams will be eliminated. Orochimaru rarely spoke at such length. No one dared interrupt. If there are no objections, prepare to begin. Jonin will escort you to your entry points. Only then did a trembling genin from a minor village raise his hand. If teams are divided by village, the numbers will differ greatly, he said carefully. Konoha and Kumogakure clearly have more participants. The concern was reasonable. Compared to the 5 great villages, their individual strength was lacking. This exam emphasized teamwork and command. Orochimaru's response was cold. The Chunin exam evaluates your suitability for promotion, he said. Once you become Chunin, you will face uneven conditions regularly. Judgment, planning, and execution are skills you must possess. If you are dissatisfied, you may withdraw and return next year. With those words, retreat was no longer an option. After brief hesitation, the smaller villages agreed. Jonin soon escorted the genin away, and the training ground grew quiet. Orochimaru leaned against a tree, clearly waiting. Half an hour later, Jiraiya appeared. Everything set? Orochimaru asked. Yes. All necessary deployments are complete. The next 5 days should be relatively calm. Good, Orochimaru said. I'll leave emergency defense to you. I'm heading back to the hospital. The hospital? Jiraiya asked. Why? The Miss Ninja are here for that Kagaya child, Orochimaru replied. I need more blood samples. ____. Crescent Moon Ramadan Special. Unlock advanced chapters on my Patreon with 7 days free trial on all tiers. 40% discount. Use code RamadanPass. Link, patreon.com/zphyr. Limited time Ramadan offer, don't miss it. Chapter 323, A Battlefield of Flags. 1,348 words. In this ranking-based confrontation, individual strength was deliberately reduced to its lowest point. Victory in the second stage of the Chunin exams depended entirely on cooperation. Only by protecting one's own large flag while capturing as many small flags as possible from other genin camps could a village secure advancement as a group. From the current situation alone, Konoha and Kumogakure clearly held the top 2 positions. The reason was simple. They possessed the largest number of genin among all participating villages. However, geography told a different story. Konoha's camp was positioned at the very center of the training ground, making it significantly less defensible than Kumogakure's location. Some of the more perceptive genin had already noticed something unusual. The 13 camps, divided according to hidden villages, mirrored the distribution of nations across the ninja world. In other words, this was no ordinary second-stage examination. It was a compressed simulation of a ninja world war. The difference was that every village's military strength had been reduced to the genin level. It was unclear how many participants recognized this truth, but once Minato Namikaze realized it, the information spread rapidly among the Konoha genin. Most of the ninjas present had experienced the Second Great Ninja War firsthand. Only a handful, such as Kushina Uzumaki and Might Due, lacked real battlefield experience. One fact was beyond dispute. This was not a competition between small squads. It was a large-scale team operation, and intelligence had to be shared without reservation. With the absence of the most outstanding Uchiha of this generation, Uchiha Hayashi, and the sharp-minded Shikaku Noro, Minato naturally became the acting commander. There were a few dissatisfied voices, but with the open support of major clan members such as Nawaki Senju and Uchiha Mikoto, any opposition was quickly silenced. After an entire day passed, Minato was still organizing intelligence and memorizing the terrain map when Aburame Shibi approached. Hearing footsteps, Minato looked up. How is the situation now? As a member of the Aburame clan, Shibi's reconnaissance abilities were unmatched. Thanks to him, Konoha had already gathered information on several enemy camps. We've confirmed the camp locations of Kusagakure and Omegakure, Shibi reported. The movements of the remaining small villages are still unclear. Minato nodded. Given that the camps mirrored the real-world layout of nations, the smaller villages were scattered between the great powers. Remaining passive was not an option. Since final rankings depended on flag count, every village would eventually need to take the initiative. However, attacking blindly would be foolish. Once battle began, injuries and eliminations were inevitable. The genin of the 5 great nations were far stronger than those of minor villages. A direct clash at the start would only lead to unnecessary losses. Targeting weaker villages first was the logical choice. What about Sunagakure? Minato asked after a moment of thought. Before the exams began, Konoha had gathered detailed intelligence on every village. Among them, Rosa of Sunagakure, wielder of magnet release, was undoubtedly the greatest threat. They're actively scouting as well, Shibi replied. But due to a lack of reconnaissance specialists, their progress is slow. Their numbers are limited, so they've split into 2 squads. What's their formation? Rosa is operating alone and has moved north. Another group of 6 has headed east. The remaining genin are guarding their main camp. Minato nodded thoughtfully. A cautious setup. With this arrangement, their base is nearly impossible to raid. After a brief pause, Minato asked Nawaki to gather everyone. Half an hour later, all Konoha genin assembled. Thanks to Shibi's efforts, Minato began. We've identified 2 minor village camps and confirmed Sunagakure's movements. He distributed the compiled intelligence. We have numerical superiority, so I propose splitting into 2 units. Mikoto and Nawaki will lead the first team to probe Omegakure. I'll lead the second team to attack Kusagakure. The remaining genin will stay behind to guard our camp, with Inoichi in command. No one objected. With the plan decided, Minato handed the map to Mikoto. He had already memorized it, so he no longer needed it himself. At the camp entrance, the 2 teams exchanged brief farewells before heading off in separate directions. This training ground was far smaller than the Forest of Death. Moving at full speed, Minato's 6-person team reached their destination quickly. This is horrific. The Kusagakure camp was engulfed in scorched earth and lingering heat. The remains of earth release techniques littered the ground, along with crushed limbs and shattered Kusagakure headbands. Aburame Shibi released his insects and surveyed the area. There are traces of extensive earth release ninjutsu. It must have been Iwagakure, Minato said after a moment. During the war, Kusagakure sided with Kumogakure. That likely made them a target. This was still an exam. Such ruthless attacks would not occur without history behind them. Can you track the Iwa genin? Minato asked. After a short pause, Shibi nodded. They moved southeast. Southeast. Minato crouched and reconstructed the camp layout from memory. That leads toward Kumogakure. Are they planning to attack Kumo? Kushina asked. Minato shook his head. Unlikely. Kumogakure has the 2nd largest force. Iwa wouldn't attack them after already fighting. That leaves only one explanation. Some Kuza genin survived and fled in that direction. What should we do? Shibi asked. Intercept, Minato replied without hesitation. But wouldn't that force us into conflict with Iwa early? Iwagakure lacks numbers, Minato said calmly. If you were outnumbered and encountered fresh Konoha genin, would you fight head-on? Shibi answered immediately. No. I'd withdraw. Minato smiled faintly. Still, I wouldn't mind if they chose to fight. I trust our strength. Meanwhile, 3 Kusagakure genin were hiding in tall grass, panic written across their faces. There they are. Don't let them escape. The moment the shouts reached them, all 3 bolted forward. Behind them, 5 Iwagakure genin pursued relentlessly, hurling kunai and shuriken without restraint. The air filled with sharp impacts as weapons embedded themselves into trees and stone. The trio did not dare look back. Suddenly, the barrage stopped. "Don't slow down," said a young man in his 20s. "They're preparing something stronger." His warning proved accurate. Exploding tags followed, detonating in rapid succession. The shockwaves battered their backs and slowed their escape. "Awaki, this can't continue," another genin shouted. "Someone has to stay behind." Awaki's eyes turned cold as he glanced at the panting red-haired girl behind him. "Kana," he said flatly. "You cover the retreat." Fear overtook her instantly. "If it weren't for us, you'd be dead already," Awaki snarled. "You owe Kusagakure your life." The other genin sneered. "You and your parents were nothing but refugees." Kana's voice trembled. "I understand." Awaki tossed his remaining exploding tags at her feet. Then he seized her arm and bit down hard. The other genin followed suit before fleeing. Left alone, Kana collapsed to the ground. She hugged herself, shaking uncontrollably as memories surfaced. Of running as a child. Of her father dying young despite Uzumaki vitality. Of her mother's body covered in bite marks. Tears streamed down her face. So this is how it ends. As she prepared to detonate the tags, 6 figures appeared in the distance, wearing Konoha headbands. At the sight of the girl, Kushina froze. "That hair. She's from my clan." She ran forward. "Kushina, stop!" Minato shouted, then immediately ordered the others to advance. "Don't come closer!" Kana cried. Hearing the word Iwa, she began forming hand seals. A kunai tore through the air, striking the tags in her hand and sending them flying. The explosion detonated harmlessly in midair. In the same instant, Minato used the body flicker technique, grabbing Kana and retreating. Kushina exhaled in relief. Anger flared as red chakra surged around her. High above, Uchiha Hayashi whistled softly. "Minato has good timing." Sakumo frowned. "That's the second time you've interfered." Hayashi smiled lightly. "Interfered?" The tags were already detonating. Sakumo sighed. "The third Hokage will dock my pay." "It'll be fine," Hayashi replied. "Minato saved her, not me." After a brief exchange, Hayashi departed in a flash of movement, leaving the battlefield behind. Chapter 324, A Survivor. 1237 words. "What?" The third Hokage froze mid-motion, his hand stopping just short of his pipe. His expression shifted from calm to unmistakable surprise. "You found an Uzumaki orphan?" "Yes," Uchiha Hayashi replied, seated below with a composed expression. Red hair, abnormally large chakra reserves, and Kushina's confirmation. Her identity is almost certain. "Kushina?" Hiruzen frowned slightly. "Isn't she currently participating in the Chunin exams?" Hayashi nodded and briefly recounted the events that had taken place on the training ground. After listening, the third Hokage let out a long sigh. To think an Uzumaki orphan would end up in Kusagakure. This outcome was far beyond his expectations. After the destruction of Uzushigakure, the remaining Uzumaki had been hunted nearly to extinction. Over the years, Konoha had dispatched countless shinobi to search for survivors, yet all efforts had yielded nothing. He had truly believed Kushina Uzumaki was the last of her clan. And yet, another had survived, hidden away in a minor village. It was difficult to describe the feeling. However, reason quickly followed emotion. Unfortunately, Hiruzen thought, she is already a shinobi of Kusagakure. That complicates matters. He understood Hayashi's intent clearly. Kushina had found her clanswoman, and he was asking whether Konoha could take her in. Hiruzen wanted to. Very much so. Kushina alone was not enough to guarantee the future stability of the Nine-Tailed Seal. Her potential children were uncertain, both in talent and in suitability as Jinchuriki. Another Uzumaki would reduce that risk significantly. But this was not a simple matter of desire. The girl was already registered as a grass ninja. Whether she would truly be loyal to Konoha was one issue. The larger concern was exposure. If word spread that Konoha had taken a shinobi from another village during the Chunin exams, the consequences would be severe. Konoha's reputation would suffer irreparable damage, and no village would ever trust a Konoha-hosted exam again. Who would dare participate? Hiruzen Sarutobi had built his rule on legitimacy and trust. He would not tarnish that image lightly. Just as he prepared to refuse tactfully, Hayashi spoke again, his tone seemingly casual. That child's talent is exceptional. Her teammates recovered their chakra and injuries simply by biting her arm. The room fell silent. Hiruzen's pupils contracted slightly. This was no longer a matter of talent. It was monstrous potential. His thoughts immediately turned to the first Hokage. Hashirama Senju's regenerative abilities had allowed him to recover without medical treatment, even in battle. Yet those abilities were limited to himself. This Uzumaki girl could restore others. A living, mobile medical resource. If properly trained, she might one day surpass even Tsunade in medical ninjutsu. At that point, reputation felt like a small price. The third Hokage cleared his throat, his expression turning solemn and righteous. Talent alone is not the issue, he declared. Konoha and Uzushiogakure were allied for generations. If we encounter an Uzumaki orphan, it is our responsibility to extend aid. This is the duty of allies. He looked directly at Hayashi. Acha Hayashi, I am assigning you a C-rank mission. Retrieve that child from the training ground. Yes, Hokage-sama. As Hayashi turned to leave, Hiruzen lowered his voice. Clean up any loose ends. Leave no hidden dangers. Understood. At the same time, inside a tent within Konoha's camp, a kettle simmered softly over a small fire. Kushina Uzumaki sat beside Kana, the warmth of the flames illuminating the space. A scroll containing neatly packed bento boxes rested nearby. Kana accepted the tea Kushina handed her and took a careful sip. The aroma was rich, and the warmth spread through her body. It's very good. Is it? Kushina grinned. I borrowed it from Sister Tsunade's room. Tsunade Heim of the Three Sannin. Kana asked hesitantly. I've heard of her. She's very important. She's not important at all, Kushina said cheerfully. I'll introduce you later. She'll definitely like you. Kana smiled faintly, her chest feeling warmer than it had in years. Kushina opened the scroll and pulled out a bento box decorated with a fox motif. Inside were rice balls, beef patties, sausages, fried eggs, and carefully arranged side dishes. I made these for the exam, Kushina said, slightly embarrassed. I can't promise they're perfect. Want to try? Thank you. Kana accepted the rice ball with both hands. It was heavier than she expected. She took a large bite, and before she realized it, tears welled up. She quickly lowered her head. This is the best thing I've ever eaten. You're exaggerating, Kushina laughed. It's true. You're probably just hungry. Maybe. Kushina laughed again and took one for herself. The tent felt peaceful, wrapped in warmth and quiet conversation. For Kana, meeting a clanswoman after years of isolation felt unreal. Footsteps suddenly sounded outside. Kushina stood up immediately. Who is it? It's me. Acha Hayashi lifted the tent flap and stepped inside. Kushina rushed over, grabbing his sleeve. Hayashi, what are you doing here? She paused and sniffed. Why do you smell like blood? Hayashi smiled and patted her head. Nothing serious. Just finished a small mission. What are you eating? It smells good. Food I made, Kushina said proudly. Kana stiffened at the sight of a stranger. It's all right, Kushina reassured her. This is Hayashi. You're safe with him here. Hayashi observed the scene quietly. Kushina, once always protected, was now protecting someone else. Why are you here? Kushina asked. I'm here on the Hokage's orders, Hayashi replied calmly. To speak with this grass ninja. Kana's body tensed. Hayashi, Kushina said urgently, she's my clan member. Please don't send her back. I won't, he replied. I'm here to ask if she's willing to join Konoha. Kushina froze, then let out an annoyed laugh and lightly hit his shoulder. You scared me for nothing. This is a political matter, Hayashi said flatly. I had to be serious. Kana hesitated. If I join Konoha, will Kusagakure allow it? They don't need to, Hayashi said coldly. Unless you wish to return. She shook her head immediately. I'd rather die. Any other concerns? Kana rolled up her sleeve, revealing the bite marks. I can be useful. I just don't want to live like that anymore. Hayashi nodded. No one will ever use you like that again. Kana was taken from the training ground, not to the Hokage Tower, but to Konoha Hospital. When they arrived, Tsunade had just finished work, sitting with a thermos in hand. She immediately noticed the red hair. An Uzumaki. After hearing the explanation, Tsunade's expression softened. If I had met you sooner, she said gently, my grandmother would have been happy. Her name was Uzumaki Maito. Kana nodded. My mother told me about her. She passed away years ago. I'm sorry. Tsunade smiled and stroked her hair. Call me sister, like Kushina does. As long as I'm here, no one will hurt you. Outside the ward, Orochimaru appeared. Ninjas without a homeland, he said softly. Truly pitiful. Hayashi glanced at him. Sensei, do you think Konoha could one day fall like Uzushiogakure? Orochimaru's eyes narrowed. All things decay. Konoha is no exception. And if someone tried to stop it? Perhaps only an immortal could. Hayashi shook his head. Then that immortal would likely destroy it first. _____. Crescent Moon Ramadan Special. Unlock advanced chapters on my Patreon with 7 days free trial on all tiers. 40% discount. Use code RAMADANPASS. Link, patreon.com/zphyr. Limited time Ramadan offer, don't miss it. Chapter 325, A Legacy Takes Shape. 1229 words. From Tsunade's perspective, Uzumaki Kana was the perfect disciple. First, she was an Uzumaki orphan, which meant their bond ran deeper than mere teacher and student. Blood ties mattered, especially to someone who had seen too many clans vanish from the world. Second, Kana's terrifying healing ability revealed an extraordinary talent for medical ninjutsu, the kind of natural gift that appeared only once in a generation. With those two factors combined, Tsunade taking Uzumaki Kana as her disciple felt almost inevitable. Yet there was a problem. Yakushi no. Tsunade had openly declared that she had no time or patience to teach anyone, yet only a few months later she suddenly accepted a new disciple. If one looked at it from Yakushi Nono's perspective, the situation was impossible to ignore. Tsunade herself did not particularly care what Yakushi Nono thought, but she could not ignore the people around her. Nawaki, Kushina, and Uchiha Hayashi were all watching. She could not make things too uncomfortable for them. After considerable thought, Tsunade made her decision. She would take Yakushi Nono as a disciple as well. 1 sheep was a herd. 2 sheep were still a herd. If Yakushi Nono truly possessed talent in medical ninjutsu, Tsunade would teach her without reservation. If not, then she would simply let nature take its course. In the end, each of Konoha's 3 Sannin had found their own legacy. No one was happier about this outcome than Nawaki. On one hand, the girl he admired had become his sister's disciple. On the other, he had gained another little sister. To him, this felt like the perfect protagonist set up straight out of a manga. Soaking comfortably in the hot spring, Uchiha Hayashi listened to Nawaki's overly dramatic declaration and calmly poured cold water on it. Don't celebrate too early, Hayashi said lazily. Have you prepared the dowries yet? Bare-chested, Nawaki froze. Dowries? What dowries? You have 2 little sisters now, Hayashi replied. When they get married, who do you think provides the dowries? I thought I'd just collect gift money. Splash! Minato slipped and fell flat onto his back in the pool. Hayashi burst out laughing. By the traditions of great clans, the elder brother is responsible for providing generous dowries. Isn't that right, Minato? Minato blinked, then gave an awkward smile. I don't really understand big clan customs, but if it's tradition, there must be a reason for it. Nawaki slowly sank beneath the water until only half his head remained visible. He covered his face and wailed toward the sky. I'm broke. Watching him lament his financial future, Hayashi and Minato exchanged a glance before breaking into laughter. A soak in the hot spring truly was the best way to relax. Before they realized it, most of the lingering tension from the Chunin exams had melted away. Just then, the bathhouse door slid open. Bad luck, a voice muttered. Wrapped in a yukata, Rosa stepped inside with clear irritation. After finishing the second exam, he had come to unwind, only to encounter the people he disliked the most. For a moment, Rosa considered leaving, but retreating would cost him face. He forced himself to walk in, only to yelp and leap back out almost instantly. Laughter echoed through the bath. Hayashi, Nawaki, and Minato laughed openly, their voices ringing like bells. You? Rosa nearly cursed aloud, but when he remembered he was no match for Konoha's lightning flash, he swallowed his words. In the end, he could only sit at the edge of the pool, feet in the water, splashing listlessly. Not long after, the door opened again. This time, 2 Cloud Village ninja entered. Hayashi was genuinely surprised. He recognized them immediately. Yatsuki Ari and Killer Bee. In the span of a single evening, 3 future 4th Kage had gathered in one bathhouse. With Kushina bathing next door, the place now housed 3 future Kage and 2 Jinchuriki. With a lineup like this, one could probably form a squad capable of challenging Akatsuki without hesitation. Yatsuki Ari had not expected to encounter Konoha's lightning flash either. Unlike Rosa, who was already on edge, Ari was openly excited. As a battle fanatic, he had long wanted to test himself against the strongest of the new generation. Feeling Ari's intense gaze, Hayashi remained completely unfazed. A stare, no matter how fierce, could not harm him. "Hey, I'm Ari," Yatsuki Ari finally said. "Hayashi," he replied simply. Since the other man did not offer a surname, Hayashi did not press the issue. After brief introductions, Ari pulled young Killer Bee over and sat beside Hayashi, chatting as if they were old acquaintances. Before long, the atmosphere turned surprisingly relaxed. Only one person felt completely out of place. Rosa endured the heat in silence. By the time he adjusted the water temperature, the others were already laughing together. Until the very end, he felt like the most unnecessary person there. After the bath, the group separated without even sharing a meal. Although nothing had happened and Hayashi and Yatsuki Ari had even enjoyed their conversation, none of them trusted one another. Rosa despised Konoha Ninja. Kushina and Nawaki loathed Cloud Village. Yatsuki Ari, the future 4th Reikage, openly desired to challenge Konoha's dominance. Had they met on a battlefield instead, the result would have been a fight to the death. Such hatred was not something that could be erased easily. Walking beneath the night sky, passing brightly lit streets, Hayashi found his thoughts drifting. Trying to unite the 5 great nations through words and goodwill alone really is a fantasy. In his view, Madara's artificial dream world, Nagato's overwhelming deterrence, and Sasuke's absolute military unification all sounded more realistic than the idea that mutual understanding alone could fix the shinobi world. Unfortunately, Madara had been manipulated, and the other 2 had failed. Hayashi suddenly realized that the greatest obstacle to his own future plans might not be anyone else, but Naruto, a child who might not even be born. While he was lost in thought, Nawaki asked, "Hayashi, what are you thinking about? How to bring peace to the shinobi world?" Minato tilted his head. "Already got a plan." "Some ideas," Hayashi replied. "They're still rough." "That fast?" "I'll explain when they're ready." Nawaki nodded seriously. "When the time comes, just say the word. We've been brothers for years. Helping you is nothing." Hayashi laughed. "I'll remember that." As they prepared to part ways, Minato sighed. "Tomorrow I'm heading to Mount Myaboku with Jiraiya-sensei. I should be back before the 3rd exam." Hayashi's eyes widened slightly. "Special training with Jiraiya-sensei? That's good news. Why the long face? If you had to eat bugs every day, you'd look the same." Nawaki leaned closer. "Is Mount Myaboku really full of toads?" Minato smiled helplessly. "Toads everywhere. Jiraiya-sensei says there's even a great toad sage." That caught Hayashi's interest. "Has it awakened recently?" Minato shook his head. "Jiraiya-sensei said the great toad sage last woke when he was a child, over 10 years ago." "A decade?" Nawaki exclaimed. "How old is it?" "I'm not sure," Minato replied. "Granny Shima is over 800, and the great toad sage is far older." Nawaki stared in disbelief. After a long pause, he muttered, "No wonder some shinobi worship the toad god. Is that the secret to a long life?" Chapter 326, Borrowed Power. 1013 words. With the second round of the tune-in exams concluded, the remaining candidates were granted half a month of free time. For many genin, this break was anything but rest. Across Konoha, training grounds filled with young shinobi pushing themselves relentlessly, all hoping to achieve a breakthrough before the final stage. At one such training ground, Kushina stood wearing a black ninja outfit, hands on her hips as she looked around in confusion. "Where are Mikoto and the others?" she asked. Uchiha Hayashi, who had arrived earlier, dropped lightly from a tree branch. His gaze briefly swept over the energetic redhead before he replied calmly, "I already asked Big Brother Sakumo to train Mikoto. Nawaki is with Tsunade Sensei, and Minato left for Mount Myaboku last night. To eat bugs. Kushina blinked. That too, Hayashi said. Oh, I see. Kushina nodded, then her lips curled into a mischievous smile. Hayashi narrowed his eyes slightly. What are you planning? Nothing at all, she replied innocently, then leaned forward with excitement. So, what are we training today? There aren't many techniques left that need intensive work, Hayashi said. Your Renzoku Bakudan already handles most combat situations. He was stating a fact. Despite knowing many jutsu, Hayashi relied on only a few in actual battle. Really? Kushina's shoulders drooped in disappointment. Hayashi smiled faintly and patted her head. How's your relationship with the guest living inside you? You mean Kurama? Kushina thumped her chest confidently. Pretty good. He just talks too much and never shuts up. That's good enough, Hayashi said, deliberately ignoring the second half. Then I want you to fight me using the Ninetales power. Over the next 2 weeks, if you manage to defeat me even once, passing the Chunin exams will be guaranteed. Eh? Kushina stiffened. Isn't that dangerous? She rarely rejected his ideas, but the Ninetales chakra was something she associated with enemies, not allies. Using it against Hayashi, or any Konoha shinobi, made her uneasy. The Anbu already reported the last chakra leak, Hayashi replied evenly. Today, the Hokage gave permission. Kushina frowned. Didn't Uncle say before that I shouldn't use it? Who knows, Hayashi said lightly. In truth, even he found the decision strange. The third Hokage was cautious by nature. Such a concession could only be related to their previous conversation. As for why Hayashi was chosen to oversee this training, the reasons were simple. His sharing and naturally suppressed tailed beasts, he was close to Kushina, and most importantly, he stood firmly within the Hokage's trusted circle. Seeing Kushina hesitate, Hayashi continued, this Chunin exam is filled with monsters. Rosa from Tsunagakure, Shinobi from Kumogakure, some of them already surpass special Jonin. Minato realized this too, which is why he followed Jiraiya-sensei to Mount Myaboku. Don't you want to take first place? Kushina clenched her fists. If Hayashi says so, she muttered after a long pause. I'll talk to the big fox and ask him to lend me more chakra. Good, Hayashi said. Only chakra. Don't let his will take over. Even now, the memory of the Ninetales rampaging through Kushina years ago made his spine tighten. That power was still something he could not confidently subdue. Moments later, Kushina opened her eyes. Crimson pupils flickered briefly before fading back to black. The Ninetales chakra boosts your reserves and speed, Hayashi said. Over the next 2 weeks, you need to master it as your trump card. Got it. No visible red chakra leaked from her body, and her appearance remained unchanged. Yet the instant she kicked off the ground, her speed nearly doubled. So this is tailed beast power. Hayashi caught her punch and redirected it with taijutsu, but Kushina followed immediately with a rising knee aimed at his abdomen. He leapt back just in time. Her foot slammed into the ground where he had stood, cracking the earth in a web of fractures. Speed, strength, precision. All of it had surged. After several more exchanges, Hayashi said, show me a ninjutsu. Use proper hand seals. Kushina formed seals, and wind release, vacuum bullet condensed in her palm, dyed crimson by the Ninetales chakra. Her seal speed had not improved. So it doesn't enhance fine control. She launched the technique. Due to imperfect control, the jutsu stalled midway through its second phase, only partially formed. Even so, countless red-tinted wind blades erupted outward. Hayashi activated Kaidori current instantly, lightning crackling around him as he endured the storm. Kushina waited until the attack dissipated before charging again. How does it feel? Hayashi asked. Any strain? Feels fine, she replied between rapid exchanges. I'm adjusting. Trees collapsed around them as they traded blows. Good, Hayashi said. Let's move to stage 2. Kushina inhaled deeply and nodded. When she opened her eyes again, her pupils were fully red, feral and sharp, true beast eyes. Chakra seeped from every pore, pressing heavily against the air. Round 2, Hayashi said. Begin. Kushina's chakra-infused punch cratered the ground as Hayashi vanished. Lightning release propelled him forward in a straight-line burst. The pressure escalated instantly. Each step Kushina took forward, Hayashi matched, forcing her to adapt faster. When they finally separated, her breathing was ragged. Let's stop here, Hayashi said. But the voice that answered was not Kushina's. She pushed herself too hard and blacked out. The Ninetales rumbled. Ambition's fine, kid. Just don't rush it. Hayashi nodded silently. You have no idea how obsessed this brat is with you, the Ninetales added, glaring, though on Kushina's face it looked more sulky than threatening. The fox released its hold. Kushina collapsed, and Hayashi caught her before she hit the ground. I'm sorry, he murmured softly, unsure who the apology was meant for. _____. Support the story by sending Power Stones to unlock bonus chapters. I'd also really appreciate it if you could rate this fanfic. Constructive feedback is always welcome, feel free to share your thoughts. Limited time Patreon offer. There's currently a 40% discount available, but it won't last long. Search for ZPHYR on Patreon to take advantage of the deal while it's still active. Chapter 327, The Weight of Borrowed Power. 794 words. Uchiha Hayashi had never told the third Hokage that the Ninetales was capable of temporarily taking control of its Jinchuriki. This time was no different. Since Uzumaki Maito had deliberately left a flaw within the seal, she must have had her reasons. Hayashi chose to trust her judgment. And reality supported that decision. Kushina's relationship with the Ninetales had grown unusual. At the very least, the two were no longer openly hostile toward one another. 10 days passed like this. At the Konoha training grounds, only Hayashi and Kushina remained. After 10 consecutive days of relentless training, Kushina had gradually adapted to the Ninetales chakra. At minimum, she could now maintain a one-tailed state without losing herself. Hey, Hayashi! Kushina! A voice suddenly called out. Hayashi turned and blinked in surprise. Minato? You're back already? Yeah. Minato walked over with his familiar warm smile. Hayashi frowned slightly. You've lost weight. Didn't I tell you to bring your bento? Minato let out a helpless laugh. I did. But Jiraiya-sensei woke up in the middle of the night and ate it. Granny Shima caught him, and after that, there wasn't an after that. That sounds rough. It's fine, Minato said. The training results were worth it. Hayashi raised an eyebrow. You mastered the flying body flicker technique. Not mastered, Minato replied modestly. Barely usable. Hayashi smiled but said nothing. He knew Minato well enough to recognize understatement when he heard it. Mastering an A-rank movement technique in 10 days was absurd by any standard, even if the technique was still unstable. Years ago, Minato had already begun studying advanced sealing techniques far beyond a normal genin's level. His current arsenal might look simple, summoning jutsu from Jiraiya and Rasengan from Hayashi, but all of it was groundwork for something far greater. Hayashi, Kushina suddenly said, seizing the moment. Fight me. If you lose, you're treating us to dinner tonight. Are you sure? Hayashi asked. Kushina grinned, confidence flashing in her eyes. Of course. I've been improving a lot. Hayashi glanced at Minato. You're fine watching. Absolutely not, Kushina cut in immediately, stepping back. Hayashi raised an eyebrow. So you're not worried about your trump card being exposed? She didn't answer. She just smiled. Hayashi stepped back as well. Then, in the next instant, he charged. The clash echoed across the training ground. As the Ninetales chakra surged, a crimson chakra cloak rapidly enveloped Kushina's body. A bright red tail manifested behind her. She dodged Hayashi's taijutsu and instantly widened the distance, her speed sharply increased. Her hands blurred through seals. Wind release, drilling air bullet. The technique detonated, countless wind blades scattering outward. Dust filled the air as Kushina continued retreating. When Hayashi did not pursue from within the dust cloud, she exhaled in relief. Now, just follow what the Ninetales taught me. Her chakra output increased again. The chakra cloak grew denser, more vivid. Signs of a second tail began to form. That's enough, the Ninetales warned inside her mind. Any more and you'll collapse. Her consciousness was already blurring, but she forced her hands to move. Following the Ninetales' instructions, Kushina completed the seals. The chakra cloak vanished, along with 1.5 tails, compressing into a violently rotating crimson sphere in her palm. The real-tailed beast bomb isn't like this, the Ninetales muttered with excitement. But as a toy, it will do. Decades had passed since it last fired one. This imitation, crude as it was, still stirred something within it. Kushina barely registered the voice. The sphere was heavy. Too heavy. Though the cloak had disappeared, her beast eyes remained. The chakra had not vanished, it had simply been transferred entirely into her hand. Throw it, the Ninetales urged. That was her last clear thought. Kushina hurled the imperfect-tailed beast bomb and collapsed backward. Minato, move back, Hayashi said calmly. Minato was still trying to peer through the dust when Hayashi appeared behind him. Hayashi bit his thumb, formed seals, and slammed his hand onto the ground. Forbidden technique, Rashomon. A massive iron gate erupted into existence, towering over the training ground. Even shinobi stationed far away could see it clearly. The collision came an instant later. The impact shook the village. For a brief moment, even the third Hokage, deep within the Hokage Tower, thought an earthquake had struck Konoha. The Rashomon blocked the blast, but the thunderous explosion pierced everything else. Minato, protected behind Hayashi, lost all sound. Even circulating chakra did nothing to shield him. When the noise finally faded, Hayashi dismissed the cracked Rashomon. He turned to Minato. Could you block that? What? Minato pointed at his ear. Hayashi leaned closer and shouted, Minato, you're not deaf, are you? Let's go check on Kushina. Chapter 328, 328, Ripples. 1091 words. Uchiha Hayashi had never mentioned to the third Hokage just how abnormal yesterday's training incident truly was. Still, that did not stop the consequences from arriving swiftly. The next day, inside the Hokage's office, Hiruzen Sarutobi sat behind his desk, rubbing his temples as he looked at the boy standing before him. Don't you think there's something wrong with your training methods? The third Hokage asked helplessly. The collision of those two techniques the previous day had not only shaken the training ground, it had echoed throughout the entire village. The deafening blast had torn through Konoha's airspace without mercy. Worse still, the underground extension of Root headquarters had nearly collapsed because of it, forcing Danzo to storm in late at night demanding answers. Hehe. Hayashi scratched his head, fully aware that he had caused a serious problem. Faced with the Hokage questioning, thick skin was his only defense. You? Hiruzen sighed, choosing to ignore him as he began organizing the scattered documents on his desk. I'll handle it. Hayashi stepped closer, smiling ingratiatingly. That's enough, I give up. The third waved him off. You don't need to worry about the aftermath. Just prepare for your role as chief proctor for the third exam. And the repair costs for the training ground will be taken from your own funds. Understood, Hayashi replied without hesitation. Money was hardly an issue for him. Compared to the damage he had caused, this punishment was barely a slap on the wrist. After leaving the Hokage Tower, Hayashi headed toward the training ground. Along the way, he encountered a familiar figure he had not seen in quite some time. Or rather, it was not a coincidence. The man clearly looked like he had been waiting. Yo, big brother Sakumo, Hayashi greeted with a grin. Judging by that smile, it seems the Hokage didn't scold you too badly. Just had to pay for repairs, nothing more. Sakumo nodded calmly. That's fine. Anything that can be solved with money isn't a real problem. Did you need something else? Sakumo hesitated before speaking. It's about Mikoto. Hayashi's expression sharpened slightly. What happened? She's been pushing herself too hard in training. I've spoken to her several times, but it hasn't helped. Hayashi nodded, unsurprised. I'll talk to her later. Sorry for the trouble. Sakumo chuckled softly. No need. That Kaidori of yours gave me some inspiration as well. Oh. Hayashi smiled. Then I'll have to ask for your insight sometime. Sakumo laughed heartily. Good. With no real battles lately, my white fang's starting to rust. After exchanging a few more words, the two parted ways. Not long after, Hayashi spotted a familiar blonde woman standing by the roadside, casually drinking beer. Her presence was impossible to miss. His gaze lingered for a moment before he silently sighed. What a shame. Brat, stop right there. Tsunade's voice rang out sharply as she watched Hayashi walk past her as if she did not exist. You just ignored me, and you were insulting me in your head, weren't you? Hayashi immediately protested his innocence. How could that be? You're young and beautiful. Sure, a little rough around the edges, not too fond of dressing up, and maybe lacking in gentleness, but Sensei Tsunade, you've always been the perfect woman in my heart. I would never slander you. Who taught you to speak like that? Veins visibly bulged on Tsunade's forehead. Jiraiya, the last time we drank together. Fine. She grabbed his collar briefly, then shoved a black pouch into his hands. I'll go deal with him myself. Are you coming? To watch? No, Tsunade said flatly. If it turns into a bloodbath, someone needs to drag him to the hospital before he dies too quickly. She was smiling, but there was no warmth behind it. I still have things to do at the training ground, Hayashi replied calmly. Take care, sensei. Tsunade snorted and walked off. Watching her leave, Hayashi silently praised his own quick thinking. Jiraiya had finally gotten the alone time he wanted. Humming softly, Hayashi continued toward the training ground, only to find it already filled with genin spectators. Why are all of you here? He looked around and spotted Rosa in the distance, along with Kumogakure's A. Even genin from other villages were peeking from afar, making his head ache. Ha ha ha, we heard about yesterday's commotion, A said openly. So we came to witness another earth-shaking battle. Hayashi shook out his cloak and chuckled. You'll see it during the tuning exams. Disappointment spread among the foreign shinobi upon hearing that. From afar, Rosa sneered quietly. TCH, just a Jinchuriki. Before he could finish, something pressed firmly against his back. A kunai handle. Rosa stiffened instantly. I suggest you watch your words, Hayashi whispered cheerfully into his ear. The killing intent behind the voice sent a chill through Rosa's spine. A moment later, the pressure vanished. Hayashi's shadow clone dispersed in a puff of smoke. Rosa turned stiffly, only to see Hayashi smiling warmly, as if nothing had happened. As Minato and Kushina continued their taijutsu training, Hayashi opened the black dossier Tsunade had given him. Inside were detailed reports on hereditary bloodline illnesses. So I'm just a messenger, he muttered. As he flipped through the file, a black card slipped out. Hayashi caught it instantly and tucked it away after checking his surroundings. A Konoha Bank black card, reserved for accounts with enormous funds. It seemed Tsunade's medical fees were far more terrifying than her fists. After pocketing the card, Hayashi called Minato and Kushina over briefly before returning to the Hokage office once more. This time, another person was present. Hayashi-kun, the third Mizukage, greeted him warmly. Greetings, Mizukage-sama, Hayashi replied formally before handing over the dossier. All recent research data and treatment records are inside. The third stage of the tuning exams was approaching, so the Mizukage's presence was unsurprising. Very well. We'll proceed after the exams, the Mizukage said before departing. Watching him leave, the third Hokage sighed quietly. Why is he here? Hayashi asked. Did he resolve the Kagaya clan issue? Every village has its own struggles, Hiruzen replied. It depends on the Kage's ability to hold them together. As the only survivor of the first 5 Kage summit, I hope nothing happens to him. As long as he lives, Kirigakure can remain neutral. ____. Crescent Moon Ramadan Special. Unlock advanced chapters on my Patreon with 7 days free trial on all tiers. 40% discount. Use code RamadanPass. Link, patreon.com/zphyr. Limited time Ramadan offer, don't miss it. Chapter 329, the stage is set. 1,282 words. The next 4 days passed in relative calm. With the third round of the tune-in exams approaching, the proctor, Uchiha Hayashi, entered the final phase of preparations. He familiarized himself thoroughly with the arena, personally checked the barrier formations, and finalized contingency plans for unexpected situations. While there was no need to alter the structure of the exam itself, the level of precision required far exceeded that of the first 2 rounds. Outside of these duties, Hayashi still made time to guide Kushina's training, making the days busy but fulfilling. As the final day arrived, the third Mizukage had already taken his seat. Shortly after, the specially invited 4th Kazekage arrived at the venue, accompanied by his San Shinobi. It was clear he had little desire to be there, but the post-war agreements between villages left him no choice. Ha ha, Lord Kazekage, it has been a long time, Hiruzen Sarutobi said warmly as he stood to greet him, his face creased with a broad smile. They said one should not strike a smiling face, yet for some reason, the 4th Kazekage felt an inexplicable urge to plant a kunai into Sarutobi's expression. A quick glance at Orochimaru, standing beside him as his escort, cooled that impulse. Lord Hokage, you seem well, the Kazekage replied with a polite smile of his own. It is a pleasure to meet you, Lord Kazekage, the third Mizukage added as he stood. Lord Mizukage, greetings, the Kazekage said after a brief pause. This was his first time seeing the Mizukage in person. The land of water was distant and isolated, and until now he had only known the man through intelligence reports. Could the rumors be true? The Kazekage wondered silently. Did the mist and the leaf really strike some hidden agreement? With those thoughts lingering, he took his seat. While the Kage exchanged courtesies above, the arena below was already prepared. Hayashi, Hey-8 Gecko, and the Genin candidate stood ready within the vast battleground. The third round of the Chunin exams was less about survival and more about display. Because the number of advancement slots was limited, a preliminary elimination had already taken place, quietly removing weaker participants. Among those eliminated were Nono and Might Du-Wei. Nono's loss came as no surprise. As for Du-Wei, Hayashi had personally watched all of his matches. Without opening the 8 gates, Du-Wei possessed strength comparable to a Chunin, but relying solely on taijutsu left him heavily restricted against most opponents. It was unfortunate, but unavoidable. When the third Hokage announced the start of the exams, Hatake Sakumo, serving as one of the proctors, stepped forward and spoke clearly. You are already familiar with the rules, so I will not repeat them. The match order has not been announced beforehand. The battle list will be revealed on the spot. He pointed toward the electronic display mounted high on the arena wall. If there are no questions, prepare to begin. No Genin raised an objection. Hey-8 nodded, and moments later, the names of the first match appeared. Ucha Mikoto vs Akimichi Chosa. Watching from the sidelines, Hayashi raised an eyebrow. He had not expected the first match to be an internal leaf confrontation. The third Hokage truly had not interfered behind the scenes. Chosa, please take care of me, Mikoto said calmly as she completed the ninja salute and assumed her stance. Compared to Mikoto's composure, Chosa was visibly nervous. He knew from the start that he was at a disadvantage. He glanced briefly at the sky, imagining Shikaku somewhere enjoying snacks, and sighed. Fighting here was far less appealing than sharing food with his friend. Still, he straightened himself. Giving his all was the respect owed to any opponent. Please take care of me, Mikoto, Chosa said after bowing. The battle began instantly. Ninja art, multi-size technique. Chosa activated his clan's secret technique without hesitation. His chakra surged, his body expanding rapidly as he transformed into a massive rolling force, charging straight toward Mikoto. Mikoto moved at once. With swift, precise motions, she flicked her wrist, sending 6 kunai flying. They collided midair, scattering outward in unpredictable arcs, none of them striking Chosa directly. The distance between them vanished in moments. Just as it seemed Mikoto would be overwhelmed, she stomped lightly against the ground and launched herself backward, retreating with speed that most spectators could barely follow. In the stands, Sakumo watched with quiet pride. As a speed-oriented shinobi, he had emphasized movement and positioning in Mikoto's training. Having created enough distance, Mikoto threw another wave of kunai. She repeated this several times, carefully guiding their placement. Once Chosa rolled into the center of the field, Mikoto lifted her hand and subtly curled her finger. Thin, nearly invisible thread snapped taut. Like a spider's web, they wrapped around Chosa's expanded form, halting him completely. Mikoto formed seals. Fire style, great fireball technique. She adopted the stance, but stopped short of releasing the flames. This was a Chunin exam, not a battlefield, and Chosa was still a fellow Leaf shinobi. Winner, Ucha Mikoto, Sakumo announced as he landed in the arena. The crowd erupted in cheers as Mikoto exited the stage. Soon, the second match appeared on the screen. Rosa vs Karura. The Leaf's internal battle had ended. Now it was the Sand's turn. The fourth Kazekage expression remained neutral. With Leaf having fought first, he had no grounds to accuse them of manipulation. Rosa and Karura entered the arena together. If there are no issues, prepare to begin, Hayashi said, stepping forward to officiate. I forfeit, Karura said softly, raising her hand before the match could start. Hayashi glanced at her. Have you thought this through? Forfeiting here carried weight beyond personal pride. Hayashi briefly looked toward the high platform. The Kazekige's face had already darkened. Yes, Karura replied firmly, her face flushed as she nodded again. Rosa, however, showed no appreciation. He shook his head in irritation, clearly displeased at losing an opportunity to display his strength. Seeing this, Hayashi nearly laughed. Rosa truly lived up to the reputation of a straightforward sand shinobi. This match goes to Rosa of the Sand, Hayashi announced. As the pair exited the arena, they were followed by loud boos from the audience. The remaining matches progressed quickly. The Hidden Mist had requested cooperation from the Leaf, and their genin were clearly not sent to compete seriously. 3 Mist genin were eliminated in succession, falling to Minato, Nawaki, and the centerpiece of the exams, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. With that, the first and second rounds concluded without surprises. When the third round began, the screen displayed the next matchup. Minato vs. Rosa. Please move to the center of the arena, Hayate announced. Once both shinobi took their positions, neither bowed. They simply stared at one another. After a long pause, Rosa smiled faintly. It seems life in the Leaf has not treated you well. The Hokage must be eager to send you to your death. Minato's usual gentle demeanor vanished. I am the weakest, so I was sent to face you. Otherwise, if I killed you by accident, it might cause a diplomatic problem. Rosa laughed loudly. Kill me? You are not worthy. I will show you the difference between an ordinary ninja and a true genius. High above, the fourth Kazekage laughed as well, his earlier irritation forgotten. After all, within the Sand Village, only he and Rosa possessed magnet release. Rosa was his personal disciple, while Minato was merely a civilian-born Leaf genin. Against magnet release, such a background should mean certain defeat. The Kazekage watched closely, eager to see how this blonde boy would fall. Chapter 330, Victory in the Ring. 846 words. After a full minute of fierce verbal sparring, Minato and Gaara both surged forward with incredible speed and collided with explosive force. Immediately after, the two exchanged a quick volley of probing attacks with shuriken and kunai. Finally, after landing a short distance apart, Minato vanished in an instant. Uchiha Hayashi, who had insight into Minato's potential, once remarked that Minato was destined to evolve into a speed-type shinobi. As a result, during his training at Mount Myaboku, Minato set aside the sealing techniques he once favored and instead followed Jiraiya's guidance to master the successive body flicker technique. Now, the results of the relentless training were on full display in this Chunin exam match. From the stands, the third Hokage watched with a surprised expression. He had known some of Minato's background from Jiraiya's reports, but he had never paid him much attention until now. This young man was a true prodigy. In his mind, the third Hokage began calculating how best to nurture such an extraordinary talent. On the arena floor, with Minato constantly evading his attacks, Gaara muttered in frustration, "Is dodging the only thing you can do?" Minato did not respond. He took advantage of the moment and activated body flicker once more, his kunai slicing sharply against Gaara's iron sand shield with a screech. Magnet release, gold dust shuriken. Since his raw speed alone couldn't overwhelm Gaara, Minato was forced to rely on wide-area techniques to keep him on the defensive. Gaara, for his part, did not believe Minato could sustain continuous use of the body flicker technique. After 10 minutes of this back and forth, Gaara was shocked to see that Minato showed no sign of fatigue. In fact, the blonde youth only seemed to grow more resolute as the fight progressed. Both combatants were visibly injured, but if this continued, the first to fall would almost certainly be Gaara. Is this guy really from a civilian upbringing? His chakra reserves are enormous. Gaara, wrapped in his iron sand defense once more, now had less than half of his chakra left, yet Minato remained brimming with vigor. Chakra sealing scrolls are really remarkable, Hayashi observed, gazing at the seals on both of his hands and nodding. In other words, Minato was extraordinarily intelligent. He knew his weaknesses and used all available knowledge to overcome them and excel. If Minato didn't die in the future, no one could guess how far he might go. When Hayashi looked back up, the battle in the arena was still deadlocked. Gaara's iron sand shield couldn't catch Minato's speed, yet that thick armor of sand was also something Minato could not easily penetrate. After such a prolonged fight, the first to break was not Minato, but Gaara, as evidenced by his increasingly impatient expression and more aggressive maneuvers. Even in Gaara's thoughts, there was a hint of regret. If he had used a powerful, decisive technique from the start, it might not have become so difficult. But that was only an if. Now, his chakra could no longer support a prolonged battle, while Minato seemed inexhaustible. He needed to end the fight quickly. Magnet release, Iron Sand World Order. Complex hand seals formed in an instant, and Gaara's remaining chakra drained suddenly. Thanks to the dedicated training of the third Kazekage, even at his young age, he could use this magnet release technique, considered forbidden by many. Instantly, a massive amount of iron sand rose high into the sky, a breathtaking sight that drew every eye in the audience. The iron sand twisted and shaped itself rapidly into a terrifying formation. But to Minato's exceptionally sharp reflexes, everything seemed to slow down. In the next moment, he saw his opening. The third Kazekage on the high platform slapped his own forehead, thinking to himself exactly what everyone was thinking. That was reckless. Using a technique you barely master only brings trouble. Rasengan. Minato, now capable of forming the Rasengan without requiring a shadow clone, appeared behind Gaara in a blink and drove the spinning ball of chakra forward without hesitation. The Rasengan's internal twisting force was devastating. Unless a shinobi possessed a defense on par with the third Raikage strength, there was no resisting it. Sure enough, Gaara, protected only by a single layer of iron sand defense, was blasted backward instantly. Mid-air, he felt a fierce, metallic taste rush up his throat. Did I lose? The winner, Namake's Minato. Hayashi steadied Minato's slightly swaying form and raised his hand to announce the result to the stunned audience. Cover your ears. Hayashi whispered this to Minato. Minato looked at him with confusion, as if asking why. But at that moment, he knew. From the stands, deafening cheers had erupted, engulfing the arena for the young shinobi who had just achieved victory. Cheers like, "Nicely done, best friend. That was incredible. Sogu. ______. Crescent moon to all our Muslim brothers and sisters, wishing you all a wonderful Eid. May Allah's blessings be with you today, tomorrow, and every day. May today bring laughter, delicious food, and joy." Chapter 331, 331, Kushina's Fierce Match. 1371 words. After Minato's match concluded, it was quickly Kushina's turn to face her opponent in the arena. Despite being on such an important stage, Kushina felt unexpectedly disheartened. She could not help the sinking feeling in her chest as she stepped forward. After all, this was the Chunin exam, yet for 3 rounds straight, her matches had not been officiated by Uchiha Hayashi, but by the white-haired referee standing before her. Did I accidentally offend the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki somewhere along the line? Sakumo, looking puzzled, touched his cheek as if wondering out loud, do I really seem that unpopular? He paused and continued to murmur, no wonder my blind dates have been going poorly recently, apparently I've just been imagining things. Nearby, the blonde-haired Nawaki stood on stage, his expression a mix of despair and resentment. Others might not have known just how strong Kushina truly was, but Nawaki certainly did. It was no exaggeration to say that in this part of the exam, anyone who crossed paths with the little fox would often surrender with a laugh rather than a fight. That was the power of the Nine-Tails. At full strength, Kushina fought like a dominant force among ordinary shinobi. Hey, is this the Leaf Village police force kicking someone out for cheating? Hurry up and arrest her, someone joked, prompting laughter. Nawaki felt his confidence plummet. After boasting for months that he was aiming for the championship, would he now be stopped at the quarterfinals? This was humiliating. Kushina, go for it, beat Nawaki. Uchiha Hayashi called out from beside the arena, joining in the crowd support. His voice was almost immediately drowned out by the audience's cheers, yet both Kushina and Nawaki heard it clearly. Nawaki scowled fiercely, staring at Hayashi as if he wanted to shove hundreds of explosive tags into his stomach. Kushina, on the other hand, brightened. Hayashi cheered for me. Kurama, did you hear that? She called out enthusiastically. You should just focus on the match, Kurama replied from inside her chakra cage, sighing. She had always been reserved even when she liked someone 2 years ago, and Kushina's bold reaction now made her wonder if her host was becoming less shy with age. Kurama wondered vaguely if one day soon Kushina might be the one making the first romantic move. For now, that worry stayed in the back of her mind. At the signal from Sakumo, the match began in earnest. Nawaki charged forward with his blended ninjutsu and taijutsu style, his speed so fast that a gust of wind brushed Kushina's bangs aside. Thanks to her recent training, Kushina's combat experience had risen sharply. She nimbly dodged Nawaki's punch and formed a hand blade with her left hand, aiming a quick strike toward his neck. A precise hit there, even without full force, could leave him dazed and off balance. Nawaki glanced aside and lifted his leg to kick backward, forcing Kushina to pull back her hand blade. Uchiha Hayashi, watching below the stage, was clear about both fighters' levels. In a standard exchange like this, Kushina would appear to be outmatched by Nawaki. But this was Kushina. Fully aware of her disadvantage, she pulled back with thoughtful precision. Then, in a flash, she gathered chakra and launched a projectile technique from her hand. Wind-style, vacuous bombs, forming in swift succession and hurled fiercely toward Nawaki. At the same time, Nawaki formed hand seals and activated water-style, rain formation, a known mid-range water ninjutsu. A single drop of water shot out, floating in the air. Then 10 drops. Then hundreds and thousands more. The water streamed forward like a barrage of needles, colliding with the incoming vacuous bombs. The two techniques met in mid-air, detonating and scattering shrapnel of wind and water everywhere. In the clear daytime sky, it looked as if a sudden heavy rain had begun. 20 minutes passed in this intense battle, and when the dust cleared, the arena was left in ruins. Nawaki, unable to maintain his footing, stumbled out of the smoke and collapsed face-first on the ground. "This match is won by Uzumaki Kushina," Sakumo announced from the platform. Medical Ninja rushed in immediately to carry away the unconscious Nawaki and the seriously injured Kushina. Acha Hayashi exhaled with a sigh. Nawaki had fought with everything he had, even if he knew Kushina was stronger. That was the way of the shinobi, no one gave up easily. While Nawaki and Kushina fought their intense battle, Mikoto's match in the following bracket went much more smoothly. Her opponents came from other villages and were not nearly as formidable, allowing her to advance with only minor injuries. With that fight concluded, the 4 semi-finalists for the Chunin exam were decided, and the Hidden Leaf Village surprisingly held 3 of the 4 spots. Whether the results were due to skill or manipulation was of little concern to the spectators. All that mattered was the Leaf Village's growing reputation for strength. "There will be a 2-hour break before the semifinals begin this afternoon," Sakumo announced from the center of the arena. The third Hokage chuckled, rising to his feet. "How about that, Keisuke-san, Mizuki-san," he said with a smile. "I've prepared a lavish banquet in your honor. I hope you will join us. I've always heard that the Leaf Village banquets are renowned, and I've yet to try one." "I won't refuse," replied the third Mizuki, rising politely in response. The third Keisuke on the side seemed reluctant, but with nowhere to refuse, he followed with a neutral expression. Sarutabi Hiruzen simply smiled, unfazed. At the lunch gathering, Kushina turned to Hayashi, eating with energetic enthusiasm, and asked, "Why are there 2 chief examiners for this Chunin exam?" "There were also 2 for the second exam, Orochimaru-sensei and Jiraiya-san," Hayashi replied without directly answering, smoothly guiding the conversation. "Could it be some kind of Easter egg?" Minato guessed, contemplating. Mikoto offered her opinion, maybe they've arranged some performance match with Sakumo-senpai after the exams. Hayashi considered this, then explained, the purpose of the Chunin exam is to showcase a village's strength. Having multiple referees helps highlight that prestige. Originally, this match might have been slated for Orochimaru-sensei and Jiraiya-san, but they refused, so it ended up being our turn here. Kushina patted Hayashi on the shoulder and teased, "Those who are capable work harder, huh? Don't lose in such a public setting." Hayashi grinned, then asked with concern, "Are you sure you're all right? Your injuries looked serious. Have you seen a medical ninja?" According to the bracket, Kushina was scheduled to face Minato that afternoon. Defeating Nawaki had already been arduous, Minato would be even more difficult. Kushina smiled confidently, "It was mostly chakra exhaustion. Tsunade Nichan already healed my external injuries, so I'm fine." "Good to hear." Just then, a voice echoed from the doorway. "Ah, there you are." Everyone looked up. The first thing they noticed was Tsunade's presence. "I can't believe you found a restaurant in a place like this," she remarked as she pulled out a chair and sat, grabbing Hayashi's drink and taking a long gulp. Hayashi swallowed his surprise and stayed silent. Seeing Tsunade, Kushina quickly asked, "Nei-chan, how's Nawaki?" Tsunade ordered food casually, as if she had always been part of the group, then turned and smiled. "He's fine, just resting in the hospital. No need to worry." Kushina relaxed. Tsunade sipped her sake and commented, "I didn't expect him to fight this hard. After this, I can actually leave the village without worry for a bit." Everyone had heard whispers of this matter since last year, so her confidence was not surprising. Hayashi, still curious, asked, "Which room is Nawaki in? We can go see him later." Tsunade considered, then replied, "The same room Mikoto stayed in last time." Hayashi's face twisted into a strange expression. That room had housed him, then Kushina, and then Mikoto. Now it was Nawaki's turn. He glanced at Minato, who was still eating unbothered, then with a hint of warmth, he patted the young man's shoulder. Whether he stayed or not, the hospital room remained, waiting silently without ever leaving. "So, good luck to you." Chapter 332, Seals. 1199 words. 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye. After the group finished visiting Nawaki in the hospital and returned to the arena, the next match was already about to begin. "I won't give up the victory in this match, Minato-kun," Kushina said seriously as she stepped onto the field, her expression unwavering. Her goal was clear and non-negotiable. If she defeated Minato, she would advance to the finals and face Mikoto. I won't admit defeat either, Minato replied with a calm smile, yet anyone listening would hear the firm determination in his voice. Good luck to both of you, Sakumo announced, then signaled for them to take their stances. Hey, furball, pay the rent. Kushina shouted teasingly toward the chakra cage on her back, like an outspoken landlady scolding her tenant. Kurama let out a low snort, annoyance rising, as thick chakra spilled from Kushina's body into the huge cage. The mix of chakra and ominous aura rolled outwards like dark red mist, strange yet hypnotic to onlookers. What is that? The crowd murmured loudly. Even the third Kazekage, known for his calm and stoic presence, frowned and stared at the stage intently. From his perspective, this wasn't just simple chakra from a Jinchuriki, this was something far more intense than ordinary tailed beast chakra manifests. It wasn't merely the Jinchuriki using more of the tailed beast's power, the way Gaara-san responded to Shukaku, it was something deeper and far more deliberate. Sarutobi Hiruzen watched the Kazekage's reaction with a quiet smile. Many in the audience would later lie awake recalling this moment. But such displays were part of the Chunin exam's purpose, a political stage as much as a test of skill. Minato, standing opposite Kushina, felt the pressure escalate instantly. He had expected Kushina to be fierce, but he had not anticipated that she would reveal such a significant bit of her power at the very start. However, Minato had already thought of ways to respond during the break. A sudden explosion reverberated through the grassy arena. With Kurama's chakra augmenting her speed, Kushina vanished in a blur. 2 lethal chakra claws erupted from the fox chakra cloak she wore. These chakra constructs were more agile and unpredictable than she had imagined, putting even Minato's body flicker technique to the test. Each claw split into smaller shards of chakra, spreading rapidly across the arena and shrinking Minato's maneuvering space. The battle won't be won like this, Minato thought urgently, evading yet another burst of chakra claws. Then he reached for the scrolls he had prepared well before the match began. Sealing technique, evil sealing method, he activated, pulling the dense sealing incantations into his hands and onto his kunai. Chakra wrapped around his weapons and hands as he braced himself. Then without hesitation he discarded the kunai and grasped 2 of the approaching chakra beast claws with his bare hands, crushing them as the sealing energy dissolved them on contact. The evil sealing method isn't meant for long use, but in this moment it served as Minato's countermeasure. Nearby, Sakumo watched and commented, sealing techniques, powerful for someone so young. Hayashi smiled quietly and replied, you won't be the first to question this, and certainly not the last. Sakumo shrugged, he's not the same type of shinobi as Jiraiya. Minato pressed forward, weaving between lingering chakra beast claws, stepping closer to Kushina's central position. Prepare to use the enhanced blast, Kurama spoke directly into Kushina's mind. Understood. Kushina formed the required seals, and a bright sphere of light laced with Kurama's chakra appeared in her hand. Suddenly explosive wind blades surged outward in every direction, targeting Minato's position with ferocity. Anticipating the attack, Minato had already created a shadow clone, sending his real body airborne just before the blast hit. While the wind blades clashed with the arena barrier at the edge of the field, the clone dissolved. The real Minato soared above the dangerous zone thanks to an immediate wind release technique he used to propel himself upward. Moments later, the familiar glowing orb in Kushina's hand triggered memories in the audience. Sakumo squinted and said, isn't that the attack that rocked Konoha last time? Hayashi, standing on the sidelines ready to leap in if needed, made no sound but watched intently. Then the explosion arrived. A massive blast of light and force engulfed the battlefield, so violent most spectators pressed their hands to their ears and eyes. Cracks began to spiderweb across the reinforced barrier, threatening its integrity under the pressure. For a full minute the aftershocks rattled the arena, dust falling as though the structure were disintegrating. Just when panic seemed imminent, the chaos finally subsided. Huff! The leader of the Konoha sealing squad exhaled, brow dripping with sweat. Without constant reinforcement during the explosion the barrier would have collapsed. What a powerful opponent, White Fang muttered, gazing at Minato huddled near the edge of the arena. How did he survive? Someone else asked. The arena itself had been reduced almost 2 meters deep, yet Minato showed only signs of chakra exhaustion, not fatal injury. Hayashi noticed something unusual surrounding Minato, an array of spent sealing scrolls. Half were chakra sealing scrolls, half were impact absorption scrolls. So he set them up ahead of time, using scroll after scroll to defend against the explosion, Hayashi said quietly. Minato hadn't mastered the Flying Thunder God technique yet, and technically was still a genin, but he had used ingenuity to prepare defenses in advance, sacrificing scrolls one after another while resisting the massive blast. This guy, he probably made scrolls for a week, Hayashi thought privately. Meanwhile, new energy stirred on the battlefield. Kushina remained standing, though pale, her chakra clearly drained. Yet the fox chakra cloak still pulsed around her, supplied constantly by Kurama. "Give up, Minato," Kushina said firmly, exhaustion evident in her voice. "You stand no chance." Minato, lying on the ground, smiled tiredly, shaking his head with resolve. He wanted to see how far he could push his limits. Seeing his determination, Kushina did not hold back. She leapt forward in powerful strides, chakra beast claws suddenly converging and slashing toward Minato's face. Because she had commanded Kurama to remove corrosive chakra attributes, the worst outcome would be Minato losing consciousness without fatal injury. But in the next heartbeat, something unexpected happened. Minato's body vanished and reappeared in a blur, so fast that Kushina's chakra claws cut only air. Caught off guard, Kushina was knocked back by the force of the movement, her fox chakra cloak dissipating like foam. Landing awkwardly, she winced as the loss of Kurama's constant chakra supply suddenly became very noticeable. Looking up, she saw Minato lying on the ground, eyes closed, a small but content smile on his face. 5-element ceiling. The arena fell silent. "Winner, Uzumaki Kushina," Sakumo announced, his voice firm. Everyone was left speechless by the intensity they had just witnessed. ______. The 40% discount on Patreon will end today. You may want to join now to secure the offer and gain early access to chapters in advance. Minimum 40 chaps, maximum 100 chaps depending on tier. patreon.com/zphyr. Chapter 333, 333, Final Clash. 997 words. 2 hours later, at the Chunin Exams Arena in Konoha, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. "Don't overdo it in the final, stay safe," Uchiha Hayashi said to the two girls resting in the Genin lounge. Mikoto nodded earnestly. In truth, her pressure was far greater than Kushina's. She had watched every second of Minato's fight with Kushina earlier, and even the incomplete tailed beast ball was something she herself could not block. "I'll have to rush her down," she thought, unwilling to give Kushina the time to prepare another devastating technique. Mikoto glanced back toward the waiting fox spirit Jinchuriki and saw her friend lost in uneasy thought. The reason was simple. Minato's last-second 5-element seal had weakened Kurama's chakra link, leaving Kushina's connection to her tailed beast scratchy and unreliable. Talking came out broken and disjointed, and channeling demand-heavy chakra for a battle was even harder. In short, she could not rely on her tailed beast chakra for this match. "I can handle myself, I don't need Big Fox's help," Kushina said fiercely to herself, smacking her own cheek and flashing Hayashi a confident grin as she strode into the arena. Hayashi did not follow. He stayed back in the competitor corridor, watching the two girls move farther away. "Ooh? Aren't you going with them?" Minato asked from the bench, sipping lemon tea. "No need," Hayashi replied calmly, "Sakumo is here, I'll leave it to him." "You're really slacking off," Minato teased, shaking his head. "Fine, don't help, but why not undo the 5-element seal on Kushina?" "Minato, are you punch-drunk from your injuries?" Hayashi joked, "I've been so busy I've never studied that seal, so no, I can't undo it." "But if you could?" Minato pressed gently. Hayashi closed his eyes for a moment, then shook his head with a rueful smile. "Too bad, your what-if doesn't exist." "Coward," Minato clicked his tongue in mock disdain. Hayashi spread his hands helplessly, "Better to ask whether I'd save you or Nawaki first if both of you fell into a cesspit." "Hey, last time it was a river," Minato grumbled. "A river won't drown you, but a cesspit might," Hayashi shot back. Minato's face twisted as his wound throbbed, then he sighed, "Right, I'll get a medical ninja for you." With that, Hayashi left the now two-person lounge. Before stepping out he gazed toward the arena, then slowly turned away. What he did not tell Minato was that Kushina's skill with sealing techniques alone was greater than theirs by miles. The little fox could break the seal herself if she wanted to, she simply chose not to. On stage, referee Sakumo stood between the girls and announced, "Final round of the Chunin exams, begin." "Kushina, let's do our best," Mikoto said, bowing slightly. "Same to you," Kushina replied with a determined nod. With that, they launched at each other without a single hesitation. The opening exchange stunned every ninja watching. The two had grown up together, close beyond mere friendship, almost like sisters. To see such intensity from the outset caught even seasoned shinobi off guard. But what shocked them even more was the battle that unfolded. The previously dominant Kushina was slowly being pressed back by Mikoto. It made sense. Mikoto had awakened even a Tsutomu Sharingan, honing her perception and giving her predictive capability over the tiniest movement, while Kushina could no longer access the raw-tailed beast chakra she had relied on earlier. Every punch, every kunai feint, every shift of stance from Kushina was read and countered by Mikoto's keen Sharingan insight. "Why aren't you using your crimson chakra?" Mikoto asked in a moment of brief pause, eyes narrowed. Kushina shook her head, but she did not speak of how the sealing technique had severed her link to Kurama. To her, this duel was between them and no one else. She wanted a fair fight, a victory earned with her own strength. She believed in her own raw stats, stamina, chakra reserves, and recovery speed. Even if she could not outfight Mikoto outright, she could out-endure her. As the battle wore on, Mikoto's offense grew more relentless. Lightning chakra crackled as she combined lightning release with her Sharingan's predictive advantage, striking with speed and precision few could match. "Give up, I don't want to hurt you more," Mikoto implored in between her attacks. Staggering slightly, Kushina steadied herself and shook her head. "I will not quit. I'm taking this championship. I don't know why you're so fixated on winning, but I have my own reasons too." She waited for her chance, a stubborn defense ready to seize a single gap in Mikoto's guard. Minutes passed, and despite her growing urgency to finish the fight, Mikoto's attacks continued. Her twin Tomo Sharingan spun faster, nearing the threshold of a third Tomo. Inside her chest a strange agitation churned. She and Kushina had always been close, deeper than friends, nearly sisters. Mikoto had known Kushina's affection for Hayashi, and though a hint of jealousy had flickered once or twice, she had brushed it aside because of their age. But today those feelings were sharper, more unsettling, nearly blurring her focus. "I have to win this match," she whispered to herself, drawing a deep breath. In an instant, Mikoto's Sharingan blossomed with a third Tomo and she formed seals with blinding speed, her chakra flaring with violent intent. Lightning release, lightning beast tracking fang unleashed from her palms, a crackling hound of electricity charging across the ground with ferocious speed toward Kushina. Unwilling to yield, Kushina met the attack with her best wind release jutsu while stepping forward to strike. Hayashi watched from the edge of the field, silence hanging in the air as the sun slipped westward. Long shadows stretched across the ground, splitting it between light and darkness. At that moment, an old saying crossed his mind with a wry undertone. "Win and you become Hokage, but lose and you marry Sakura." Chapter 334 Heavy Decisions. 1272 words. 2 days later, in the Hokage office of Konohagakure, a jubilant but formal atmosphere filled the room. "Congratulations, everyone. I've seen all your hard work," the third Hokage began, offering his customary speech. "Now that you are Chunin, I hope you will continue to love the village and strive always to pass on the will of fire." After his words, he personally lifted the Chunin flak jackets from the desk and handed them out. As Minato and the others received their jackets, excitement brimmed on their faces and trembled in their voices. "We will work hard, Hokage-sama," they said with sincere enthusiasm. The third Hokage smiled. "That's good. You've all earned a break after the Chunin exams. The village will give you another 2 days off. We'll discuss missions later." He picked up a teacup, blew on the floating tea leaves, and added, "You all may head back now." "Thank you." Once the door closed behind them, a burst of lively chatter drifted into the office as the new Chunin celebrated outside. The third Hokage took a quiet sip of tea and glanced toward the corner where Hayashi stood, calm and composed. "Seeing them like this reminds me of when I became a Chunin all those years ago," the third Hokage said with a touch of nostalgia. Hayashi walked slowly to the center of the hall and replied, "Is that so? I don't even remember how I became a Chunin." The third Hokage laughed heartily. "You jumped from Genin to Jonin in just 1 year, unlike anyone else in the entire ninja world. It's only natural that you don't feel much sentiment about it. Things that are harder to obtain are always more cherished." The youth smiled in response to the compliment. "Uncle Hokage's insight is profound." The third Hokage chuckled even more. "Your flattery is as stiff as your sensei's. But in terms of ninja talent, you surpass even him. No, you are even more outstanding than he was. In all these years, I haven't seen a child more talented than you." Hayashi listened quietly to the praise from the man who stood at the pinnacle of the ninja world. After a moment, the third Hokage's tone shifted and his gaze sharpened. "Hayashi, your clan chief, Uchiyama, has requested that I transfer you and Mikoto into the military police force. Were you aware of this?" Hayashi met the third Hokage's steady gaze and answered simply, "Yes." The clan chief discussed it with me when the young clan head's eyes had problems. The Hokage rested his chin on his hands and smiled kindly. According to your clan's regulations, his request is reasonable. Even as Hokage, I should not interfere too much. This matter is ultimately for you to decide. Hayashi shook his head firmly. I'm doing well leading Team 1. I don't intend to join the military police force for now. Good choice, the third Hokage said, his expression softening, but there's something else. I plan to temporarily disband Team 1. Hayashi blinked. Disband? Yes, the third Hokage nodded. I've decided to have Nawaki and Minato enter the Anbu for several years of training. They both have great talent, but they lack experience and need combat seasoning. As for Kushina, she cannot leave the village for the time being, so I will have her join the barrier team. This was also Uzumaki Maito-sama's wish before she passed. Hayashi asked, then what about Mikoto and me? The Hokage's tone shifted, turning the topic with a question, do you remember the 12 Guardian Ninja? Hayashi's brow twitched. It's related to them again. The third Hokage nodded. More or less. The Guardian Ninja have always protected the Land of Fire's daimyo. Though the daimyo has never stated it explicitly, he wishes to re-establish them, especially after the incident with the former daimyo's son. He remained quite uneasy about safety and political stability. So, what does he want? The third Hokage stood with his hands behind his back and stated plainly, he wants you to serve as part of the 12 Guardian Ninja for a period of time. Why me? Hayashi asked. The third Hokage smiled. The daimyo wants guards who are famous. You are known throughout the Land of Fire and beyond as Konoha's lightning flash and a war hero, naturally more renowned than most. Years ago he wrote to request you, and after your role with the former daimyo's son, he wrote again insisting you must come. Hayashi said speechlessly, he really thinks highly of me. The Hokage laughed. Of course. Your fame is extraordinary. His request could have been declined, but I believe sending you is wise. Why? Remember when merchants from the daimyo's residence colluded with Tsunagakure? These merchants will do anything for profit, and in harming Konoha they often step beyond moral bounds. The daimyo backs them, which makes them dangerous. I am sending you as a guardian ninja so that you can watch over them. If anything seems wrong, you report directly to me. Though not certain how long peace would last, the third Hokage sensed political unease and wanted to preempt potential trouble before it escalated. Hayashi felt conflicted. Avoiding the internal political storm of the Uchiha clan might be good, as war could break out in the future, yet he wasn't thrilled about joining the Guardian Ninja. In his mind, they were a bodyguard force whose reputation was not especially distinguished, and he worried it might be remembered poorly in his future resume. But in canon Naruto lore, the 12 Guardian Ninja were indeed a bodyguard organization for the daimyo of the Land of Fire. The third Hokage continued, you will also take on an S-rank mission. What is it? Monitor the Hidden Mist Village. There have been some problems there, and Anbu spies in Kirigakure lost contact during the Chunin exams. Hayashi blinked. During the Chunin exams? Wasn't the third Mizukage in Konoha then? Yes, the third Hokage confirmed. There are signs of upheaval in the Hidden Mist Village, which is located in the Land of Water and led by the Mizukage. Its ninja are known for mastery of water-based techniques. Just me. The third Hokage shook his head. No. I will dispatch an Anbu squad under your command. I'll also temporarily hand over the spy network in the Land of Water to you since the daimyo's residence is closer to that region. But I've never been in the Anbu. That's not a problem. With your strength, you can lead an Anbu squad easily. Moreover, there's someone in the squad you know who will help you. Hayashi's brow lifted, showing surprise. In short, your duties at the daimyo's residence will be heavy. Monitoring the Land of Water will count as an S-rank mission. Any other questions? Hayashi thought a moment and asked, how many ninja can I take with me to the daimyo's residence? The third Hokage smiled ambiguously. Theoretically, the daimyo only gave 2 slots for Guardian Ninja. However, as a representative of Konohagakure, you may bring up to 10 ninja as long as the total does not exceed 11. I see. I'll just take 2 people with me, Hayashi decided. The third Hokage laughed. That works. Decide who you want. If you remove some of the less capable, the slots will open up. He then pulled Hayashi toward the window and looked out over the Hokage Rock, his tone sincere. Don't disappoint me. I have high hopes for you. _____. Discount on Patreon ends in a few hours. Milestone. 100 power stones equals 1 bonus chapter. 200 power stones equals 3 bonus chapters. Chapter 335, 335, Farewells. 930 words. What? You're going to the daimyo's residence as a guardian ninja. Later that evening, during the celebratory dinner for their Chunin promotion, Tsunade sipped sake from a bottle and stared at Hayashi with wide-eyed surprise. Hayashi glanced around. Minato and the others were busy eating and laughing, not paying attention, so he lowered his voice. Tsunade-sensei, keep it down, this is still confidential. Tsunade shrugged. What's there to be afraid of? They'll find out eventually. Have you even thought about how to say your goodbyes? Hayashi exhaled. It's better not to spoil everyone's mood. A celebration shouldn't turn into a farewell party. Big deal. Tsunade asked, taking a slow sip. Goodbyes are common for ninja. Everyone has missions, and it's fine if you're separated for a few years. You're still young. Not young anymore. I'm 13, Hayashi muttered. Ha, 13? What can a kid that age do? Tsunade looked him up and down with mock disdain before chugging her bottle of sake. Without pause, she reached for another bottle, opened it, and drank it in one smooth motion. Hayashi watched in disbelief, thinking, as expected of the ninja world's top tomboy. Before he could recover, swish, swish, Tsunade had downed 2 more bottles. She smiled charmingly. Honestly, I'm the least sentimental about goodbyes. They're exciting, don't you think? I'm tired of this broken village and eager to see the world. Your melancholy is boring. Hayashi muttered, you speak so casually, but aren't you still taking Nonu and Kana with you? They're my new disciples. If I don't keep them by my side, who will guide them over the next few years? You just want 2 nannies to take care of you, Hayashi said dryly. Tsunade laughed, trying to cover her embarrassment. I just believe in living fully. And achieving immortality in the mortal world. Tsunade laughed shamelessly. Maybe the Sage of 6 Paths did something similar. Hayashi shot her a look. You read too many novels. Tsunade waved him off. Don't overthink it. Want a sip? Consider it a little farewell taste. Sensei, I'm still young. I don't drink, Hayashi protested. Not young, remember? 13, she teased. Yes. Tsunade smiled broadly but her eyes betrayed no amusement. Don't think I don't know. You've been hiding my grandmother's wine, and now you tell me you don't drink. She poured the bottle directly into Hayashi's mouth. Cough, cough, cough. Hayashi choked and spluttered, caught off guard. Tsunade laughed heartily, drained the next bottle, reached for another, and casually slung her arm around his neck. Come on, tell me, which one do you like best? Hayashi weakly said, Sensei, you're drunk. I can drink 1,000 cups, she said, flushed and hazy-eyed, reeking of alcohol. She looked every bit like a thoroughly drunk tomboy. Hayashi held his breath, trying to adjust her grip, but Tsunade only tightened it. She laughed even louder at his disheveled state. 3 guardian ninja slots. You don't have to say it. One is Mikoto, and the other is the Hyuga clan's young miss, right? Hayashi rolled his eyes. He suspected her drunkenness might be partly feigned. Tell me, which of the 3 girls do you like best? I won't tell Kushina. Hayashi hesitated, then smiled. I like them all, including you, Minato, Nawaki, everyone kind-hearted. Before he could finish, Tsunade collapsed onto the table, still muttering. Kindness, you're naive. Jiraiya chasing his dream. Orochimaru a fool, nothing lasts forever, no matter how powerful a ninja, or how strong a heart, it all becomes history, you are all naive fools. She rubbed her nose, shifted into a comfortable position, and finally fell into a deep sleep. Is big sister asleep? Kushina's voice came softly from behind. Yes, she should be, Hayashi said, gently tugging a strand of hair to poke Tsunade's nose. She only twitched slightly. Kushina sat beside him, her eyes slightly red. What you just said is true, you're going to the daimyo's residence. Hayashi stroked her soft red hair and nodded. Yes, it's an order from Hokage. I'll go find him, she exclaimed. It's no use. I've already agreed. Even without this mission, there would be others, Hayashi said calmly. I'll go with you. Hayashi looked into her eyes seriously. Kushina, you know the Hokage won't allow it. I can sneak out. Kurama has already planned the route, she whispered. Ninetales. Hayashi broke into a sweat. Do you realize sneaking out makes you a rogue ninja? I know. Then why even think about it? But, she murmured, her voice barely audible, I have no other way. Not necessarily, Hayashi said, shaking his head. When you can leave the village and see me, that will depend on your own strength. Kushina looked up eagerly. I discussed it with Hokujuncle. Once you become a Jonin, you'll be allowed to leave for missions, Hayashi explained. Jonin, who? Yes, he nodded. In a few days, you'll join the barrier team. You won't need to leave the village yet, and you can use sealing techniques to accumulate mission points. The key is still your strength. Don't assume things are peaceful. War may be just a few years away. If you want to leave, protect others, or do what you wish, don't be lazy as before. Master the Ninetales power as soon as possible, understand? Kushina's energy blazed, like cherry blossoms in full bloom. I will work hard. I won't be like before. Then I can rest assured. Hayashi opened 2 new bottles of sake, handed one to Kushina, and kept one for himself. Tonight, we drink until we drop. Chapter 336, The Trap of the Bloody Mist. 949 words. While Konoha still buzzed with laughter and celebration, ninjas from other villages had already set out on their journeys home. Naturally, this included the 3rd Mizukage. Even if Konoha was flourishing, and his time with Hiruzen Sarutobi had been pleasant, he had no intention of staying longer. In fact, he departed for the land of water the very night the exams concluded. Previously, the 3rd Mizukage had believed the village was secure under his control. Isolated overseas and free from external interference, it had prospered silently, far surpassing other villages. However, the Miwa town incident was a harsh lesson. He realized that the village was far from monolithic. Under the surface, currents of unrest were already rising, particularly driven by the 3 major clans. This prompted his second trip to Konoha. A cold calculation spread across the Mizukage's face. For the first time in years, someone dared to challenge his authority. They truly aren't afraid of death, he muttered. Suddenly, a whistling sound cut through the air. The Mizukage looked up to see a grey-brown hawk circling among the clouds. Whistling in response, the bird dove like an arrow and landed gracefully on his arm. He retrieved the scroll attached to its leg, broke the seal with a precise technique, scanned it swiftly, and nodded in approval. Then he asked, Yamaki, what is the situation? A lean, middle-aged ninja closed his eyes and focused, then reported, they are moving according to plan and are approaching the ambush point. Good, the Mizukage said. His visit to Konoha was nothing more than a trap, designed to use himself as bait to draw out the restless major clans. While a water clone guided a team of genin toward the enemy's ambush point, the Mizukage's main body had already slipped away. He had even assigned over a dozen ANBU members and 3 of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist weeks in advance. I hope this effort pays off and it ends in one decisive strike, he thought, narrowing his eyes. He did not wish to return to the village and slay more ninjas, as that would harm his reputation. Time passed quickly. When the Mizukage and 2 subordinates reached the agreed location with the ANBU, more than a dozen mist ninja were already waiting. Before he could exchange words, dozens of ninja tools flew toward him. But the Mizukage was far from ordinary. In a blur, he deflected every weapon with perfect precision. Water release, water stream whip. Yamaki, the same trusted subordinate, suddenly attacked, forming hand seals and swinging a whip of water with lethal force. The Mizukage, shocked by the betrayal, barely had time to block with a kunai. Clang! The water whip's power shattered the kunai and grazed his palm like a razor. The whip attempted to bind him, but he stomped off the ground, propelling his body backward out of reach. Yamaki did not pursue but grinned. Impressive, Mizukage. You can still dodge my water whip. The Mizukage's thoughts raced. Betrayed by his most trusted subordinates, he felt both shock and fury. Who could he trust? His careful calculations now seemed laughable. Yet his lips curled into a sinister repetition, good, good, good. Each word was chilling, and by the 3rd, he was grinding his teeth against the sound of clashing weapons. Today, he did not care how many were involved in the plot. He intended to kill without restraint, fighting to the death if necessary. Yamaki, shaking his head, grinned. Don't glare at me. Your real opponent is someone else. Today, we have a special surprise for you. An invisible barrier materialized, enveloping everyone. This is... The Mizukage's voice faltered. The Red Yang formation. The Mizukage's fury rose. The full red yarn formation was a signature sealing technique of the Uzumaki clan, thought lost with the destruction of Uzushio-gakure. Konoha might still possess it, but surely they could not deploy for ninjas skilled enough to establish such a barrier. This was not merely strength, it was mastery of sealing techniques. If Konoha had this capability, the Second Shinobi World War might have ended long ago. Hiruzen Sarutobi would never have sent for such ninjas thousands of miles to assassinate him. Then who had set this trap? An old voice echoed from the shadows, "Seeing you, Koge, so helpless with rage is satisfying." I almost hesitate to interrupt. Seconds later, the figure emerged. White hair hung in disarray, a gleaming scythe supported half his body, and a thick tube ran from his back to the ground. "You are..." The Mizukage trembled. "Acha. Madara." The old man chuckled. "It's been a long time since anyone spoke that name. For that alone, I'll grant you a few more minutes of life. Aren't you dead? Who can say for sure about the boundary between life and death? Then my subordinates aren't yours either." "Of course not." Yamaki transformed into a white figure and addressed Madara. "I don't like transformation technique, can you skip making me transform next time?" "Shut up," Madara barked. White Zetsu covered his mouth obediently. The Mizukage slowly realized the Mihwa town incident and the supposed coup of the three major clans had been orchestrated. Madara had done all of this personally, setting a trap to draw him out. "You've done so much to set this trap, you must think highly of me," the Mizukage said. Madara smiled coldly. "Kirigakure is small enough for a few plans, but you have become a thorn I cannot ignore. It's time to take action." "Plan?" "Yes. I plan to turn Kirigakure into the village of the Bloody Mist. ______. Support the story by sending Power Stones to unlock bonus chapters. Chapter 337, The Third Mizukage's Last Stand. 986 words. Whether it was a carefully planned trap or a bluff, the third Mizukage found himself trapped in the most dangerous moment of his life. A man's presence could weigh like the bark of a tree. Though he had never faced Uchiha Madara in person, the legendary battle decades ago had nearly shattered the entire ninja world. From that day onward, the third Mizukage understood the truth: not all ninjas were equal. The gap between the ordinary and the extraordinary was greater than that between a human and a wild beast. Even those who were considered gods by ordinary people, or those who shamelessly called themselves the strongest, were mere clay chickens and pottery dogs compared to certain existences. And now, that existence stood before him, calm, commanding, and asking for the Mizukage's head as though stating a simple fact. The third Mizukage wanted to reply, but the words froze in his throat. Even though his opponent was in the twilight of his years, he had no confidence of victory. Yet surrender was impossible. He bore the title of Mizukage, and even if death awaited him, he would fight. His face hardened as he faced the infamous Azura, rapidly forming hand seals. His only advantage was his youth. No matter how powerful Madara had been, age had to diminish chakra and taijutsu. This was his only chance to turn the tide. Hand seals completed, a torrent of water release surged forth like a colossal waterfall. Madara, slightly tired from standing, leaped onto a rock, crouching with his knees bent. He smiled faintly at the torrent. The Mizukage, realizing the extent of the gap, understood immediately: if not for the support of the Jido statue, he would have already perished. Yet Madara showed no impatience. He calmly formed his own hand seals, releasing the technique only when the water was dangerously close. A gentle inhale, a gentle exhale, and flames erupted like a volcanic storm. Fire release, great fire annihilation. The waterfall was obliterated in an instant, devoured by the roaring tongues of fire. The Mizukage's eyelids twitched in disbelief. Even at the seaside, surrounded by thick water vapor, his advantage had been effortlessly neutralized. Left with no options, he deployed for shadow clones, forming a 30-meter water wall to barely block the attack. "I need to get closer," he muttered, dashing through the mist. At high speed, he shaped his right hand like a gun, shooting dozens of water droplets as bullets. Water release, multiple water gun cannons. Charging with a water release body flicker, he aimed for the old man. Madara, calm as ever, whispered, "Susanoo." Bang! The water gun cannons were obliterated midair, and the Mizukage was flung backward by the sheer force. He landed pale with shock. Madara's left eye was empty, yet the technique had been executed flawlessly. Before the Mizukage could process further, a skeletal figure materialized, growing flesh and meridians, sprouting two heads and twin long blades at its waist. The giant blades unsheathed. With a light shout, Madara commanded, "Rise." the earth trembled violently as massive rocks were lifted and hurled toward the Mizukage. Dust blotted out the sun, but the blades continued spinning into the sky before crashing down, creating enormous craters. Clouds of smoke and debris swirled within the Red Yang formation. Cough, cough, cough. The battered Mizukage emerged from the wreckage, forming seals again. Water release, great explosive water colliding wave. The same technique that had once ensnared Hayashi now surged with devastating force, capable of forming an ocean spanning more than 10 kilometers. Susanoo, while immensely powerful, became cumbersome in water due to its sheer size. Charging atop the wave, the Mizukage was met by Madara's second blade, for arms moving with lethal precision. The water wave was split, and White Zetsu, hidden outside the formation, watched in awe. One casual strike had cleaved through the water, earth, and air, and Madara's power was terrifying beyond imagination. Nearby, a hidden Uzumaki whispered, "Is the third Mizukage going to lose?" White Zetsu nodded. He will. The only question is how long Lord Madara intends to toy with him. Toying? He is holding back. Decades without combat make him itchy. Otherwise, this would have ended long ago. Inside the formation, the blue Susanoo hurled Magatama, obliterating the Mizukage's defenses. Exhausted and bleeding, the Mizukage's vision blurred as 3 water dragons descended from the sky. Memories flashed unbidden, nearly drowning as a child, saved by the second Mizukage, the first life he took with a kunai. Death approached. Before the dragon struck, the Mizukage fainted. His ninja tools scattered, a worn forehead protector landing in a puddle. White Zetsu approached, observing Madara, who breathed heavily. "I'm fine," the old man said calmly, "I won't die. But even with the Jido statue support, this is the limit of what I can do." The hidden Uzumaki bowed with a smile. "Even so, it's enough to crush the 5 Koge." Madara shook his head. "The 5 Koge are irrelevant. The focus is the infinite Tsukuyomi. With this body, I cannot complete it yet. We wait. Only after the 2 children grow stronger can I depart in peace." White Zetsu asked cautiously, "Then what about the third Mizukage?" "Kill him." "Why not control him with the Sharingan?" Madara's lips curved in a cold smile. "He could be controlled, but there's no need. Blame Hashirama for praising him at the 5 Koge summit. Or blame his bad luck." White Zetsu silently retrieved the Kirigakyu forehead protector, obeying Madara's command. Nearby, the hidden Uzumaki asked, "Should we clean up the battlefield?" "Leave part of it," Madara said. "If there's no trace of battle, how will Konoha notice? I await Hiruzen Sarutobi sending ninjas to the hidden mist village." "Yes, Lord Madara." As quiet settled, the old man rose, gazing at the setting sun. "Everything is prepared. Soon, I too shall set, just like this sun." Chapter 338, Journey to the Daimyo's Palace. 796 words. Leaf Village, Year 33, May. With the Chunin exams concluded, the lively village had suddenly quieted down. Ninjas from all corners of the village began departing on their missions, starting with the Leaf's lightning flash heading to the Daimyo's palace. The war's aftermath brought countless assignments, including large-scale political events attracting merchants and nobles. Documents piled up like mountains in the Hokage's office, turning Leaf Village into the busiest logistics hub in the ninja world. Goods from the land of snow were escorted to the land of hot water, herbs from Hongju Island were sent to the land of iron, young ladies were married off to foreign dignitaries, and young masters married rich heiresses. Missions came from every corner of the earth, strange, diverse, and non-stop. Even Hiruzen Sarutobi, alone in his study, occasionally crafting paper models with his wife, would think to himself, how peaceful it would be to make money standing still, everyone quiet and cooperative. The scramble for power and profit is such a tiresome affair. Closing his interesting manga book, he muttered, "Why do I feel this way? It's too calm, and strangely boring, as if I can see through everything." He glanced at the scribbled calendar, murmuring, 5 months until Late B was deadline, how difficult to endure. Despite the abundance of dispatched ninjas, the village's defenses were stretched thin. The existing barrier system, established by Mito Uzumaki, was now outdated. Although expanding gradually, it was far less effective than Mito's personal work. Fortunately, Kushina, Mito's disciple, had begun training with the barrier team. Young but gifted, she possessed the Uzumaki clan's natural talent. And, for unknown reasons, the little fox who usually preferred idleness had grown diligent, rapidly advancing in sealing techniques. The barrier team couldn't help but praise her genius. Meanwhile, Minato and Nawaki faced constant challenges. Entering the ANBU was supposed to be the pinnacle of their journey, yet they endured endless teasing and trials from veteran members. The third Hokage turned a blind eye, reasoning that setbacks forged strength. If the knife can break, it must be tempered. In short, everyone was busy, except a few particularly bold figures, like Tsunade and Jiraiya. Not long after Hayashi left the village, these two began packing, preparing for a journey at their leisure. Hiruzen even suspected they were scheming to annoy him, though thankfully, returns were forbidden, otherwise, he might have sent them back by express delivery. Still, he knew neither had ambition for the Hokage seat. Perhaps in 10 years, the fourth Hokage would be Orochimaru or Sakumo. Meanwhile, the daimyo's palace awaited. Several days later, after a relatively uneventful journey, Hayashi and his companions finally arrived at the capital of the Land of Fire. Passing the formalities to enter the city, the trio stepped through the gates. With the war concluded, the capital bustled with unmatched prosperity. Pedestrians wore brocade and finery, none appeared starved. The city's grandeur eclipsed all other places. Occasionally, curious eyes followed them, but after a moment, most lost interest. After all, 3 half-grown children were hardly noteworthy in a city full of nobles and clan leaders. They continued along the main road until they reached the Tenchukaku. From a distance, its white walls were protected by a moat. Green roof tiles gleamed, and golden tiger and dragon-headed ornaments adorned the upturned eaves. Originally a military watchtower and storage during the Warring States period, the Tenchukaku had gradually lost its defensive function, becoming a symbol of the daimyo's authority and wealth. As they approached the river crossing, a carriage came galloping recklessly, the coachman sweating and panicked. Hayashi signaled Mikoto and Himeji to step aside as he narrowly avoided the horse's hooves. Good horses are ridden by others, good people are bullied. The coachman, serving the general who suppresses the Japanese bandits, was in a foul mood. Late for the daimyo's morning meeting and berated repeatedly, he lashed his whip in anger at the 3 children. But the consequences were swift. Without any action from Hayashi, the coachman screamed, thrown from the carriage. The horses reared, hooves landing on his chest with a sickening crack, breaking for ribs. The carriage halted, and a middle-aged man, blooded and furious, climbed down. Enraged at the sudden disaster befalling his servant, he began cursing, demanding the names of the intruders. He immediately noticed the Leaf Village forehead protector. That explained his boldness. He knew Leaf ninjas followed strict rules, never harming civilians or officials. As someone who had suppressed pirates in Rogue Town and aided the daimyo, he was accustomed to authority and impunity. Hayashi looked at the furious general, chuckled, and then slowly called out. "Police, come out and clean up the mess. _______. Look up ZPHYR on Patreon to get access to chapters in advance. Chapter 339, The Sheriff's Challenge. 942 words. First, let me introduce myself. I am Oda Ichi, currently the sheriff of the daimyo's residence and the capital. Inside a hall in the Tenchukaku, a young woman in her 20s, a 3-foot katana slung at her waist, frowned and fixed her gaze on Hayashi. Hayashi met her stare without hesitation, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. The sheriff, is it? I already registered when I entered the daimyo's residence. Do I need to register again? General Junwa reported that you committed an assault outside the Tenchukaku, nearly harming his groom and injuring him. Did that happen? Hayashi scratched his head, feigning confusion. Are you sure it was me? I'm just an ordinary ninja. Would I really dare? Ordinary. Oda Ichi leaned forward slightly, her eyes narrowing, expression cold. You, Excellency, are far from ordinary. The legendary Konoha Lightning Flash, personally requested as guardian ninja by the daimyo himself. Hayashi smiled faintly, catching her subtle scent. Sheriff, I am a law-abiding citizen. My fame is just chatter among fellow ninjas, not worth much. Besides, it's my first time at the daimyo's residence. I don't know any general personally. Why would I do something so reckless? Whether you admit it or not, you'll find out when you come back with me. Hayashi laughed softly. I am a Konoha ninja. I don't answer to you. Do you plan to strike a Konoha ninja with the daimyo's sword? You? Oda Ichi snorted coldly, drawing her katana a few inches from its sheath. Hayashi burst out laughing. Your stance is weak. If you want me to react, you'll need some killing intent. Surely you haven't killed anyone yet? Her words cut, and this time Oda Ichi truly blushed in embarrassment and fury. She drew the sword 3 more inches but then, frustrated, slammed it back. And they call you the legendary Lightning Flash. You don't even dare lift a finger. I think you fall far short of Senior Sakumo. I was never as good as. Hayashi began, then paused. You know Big Brother Sakumo. HMPH, I'm not telling you, she said lightly, offering a faint, practiced smile before turning to leave. By the way, Hayashi called, grinning, for Big Brother Sakumo's sake, here's a tip. As Odaichi exited the hall, she glanced back with a hint of smugness. Right now, General Junwa is playing mahjong with the daimyo. He's the one who filed the complaint against you. She paused, then added, also, among the Guardian Ninja is a man named Soto, recommended by General Junwa. What's your step? Hayashi raised an eyebrow, smiling. Thanks for the warning. The girl snorted, a mixture of embarrassment and pride, before disappearing from sight. Once she was gone, Himeji, who had been silently observing, spoke softly. Odaichi, she must be the daughter of Oda Nobuhide, head of the Oda clan. Is she well known? Indeed. One of the 3 major families in the daimyo's residence, and reputedly the most beautiful woman there. Have you been here before, Himeji? You seem familiar with this place. I have. Every year during the Autumn Harvest Festival. She paused thoughtfully. It's not just the Hyuga clan. Many major families in Konoha maintain ties with the daimyo's residence. Hayashi nodded, realizing the depth of the political waters he had stepped into. Mikoto, curious, asked, and the daimyo? It's fine, Hayashi said lightly. We're here as Guardian Ninja, representing Konoha. The 3rd Hokage told me to be confident, perhaps even a little arrogant, but never to tarnish the village's prestige. The daimyo will handle today's matters. Nothing will go wrong. That's reassuring, Himeji said, finally relaxing. Let's go back to where we're staying, Hayashi said, leading the way. The Tenshukaku, from the outside, resembled a fortress, but inside, it was a labyrinth of courtyards, terraces, pavilions, and streams with small bridges, almost like a vast garden. The luxury surpassed anything in Konoha. To ninjas, such comfort was foreign, life in the village felt ascetic in comparison. Passing a tranquil lake, Hayashi glanced up and saw a colossal 1,000-armed cannon statue perched on a distant mountain. Himeji whispered, the daimyo spent millions of ryo building it. There's another similar statue at the Temple of Fire. Hayashi nodded but felt a pang of longing. If only this were the first Hokage's true 1,000-armed cannon. Still, the daimyo's extravagance was undeniable. After spending so long in Konoha, he almost forgot this was a feudal society. Imagine the ninja world without a daimyo, he said suddenly. Without a daimyo? Mikoto was startled. The Land of Fire would probably collapse into chaos, like Konoha without a Hokage. Hayashi shook his head. Not quite. The Hokage isn't hereditary. Though he's our superior, we're still largely equal. The daimyo, however, is inherited, and frankly, mostly useless, at least from Konoha's perspective. So should the Hokage rule the Land of Fire? Himeji asked. Hayashi smiled faintly. Village management is difficult enough. Running a country? Impossible. The daimyo delegates everything to subordinates anyway. Best to let them live in idle luxury, like celestial dragons, while we focus on what matters. He sighed. Even controlling his own fate was a challenge, yet he found himself pondering the destiny of an entire nation. Enough thinking. Let's go back and write a letter. Mikoto looked puzzled. To whom? Big Brother Sakumo, of course, Hayashi replied with a grin. One look at Odaichi shows her relationship with him is unique. Let's see if we can fish some information using her charm. Will that work? It will. Big Brother Sakumo's luck with blind dates hasn't improved in years. Mikoto could only shake her head in quiet disbelief. Chapter 340, A Daimyo's Invitation. 1,126 words. The night passed quickly. Early the next morning an attendant knocked on the door, inviting the 3 inside to meet the daimyo. After a quick wash, Hayashi led Mikoto and Himeji through the winding corridors toward a grand reception hall. When they arrived, the daimyo seated at the head of the room welcomed them warmly. Welcome, Konoha ninja. Though it was only May, the daimyo held a small red fan in his right hand. He wore lavish garments and a bright headdress that gleamed in the morning light. It has been quite some time since our last meeting. This gift was entrusted to me by the 3rd Hokage to present to you. A token of respect. In this era where ninja of high rank did not kneel before feudal lords, especially when representing Konoha's leadership, Hayashi offered a respectful bow and lifted the gift slightly. A guard stepped forward and received the gift on the daimyo's behalf. The daimyo beamed as he spoke, "The third Hokage remains ever courteous. Truly, your arrival honors me greatly." To everyone's surprise, the daimyo rose from his seat, walked around to Hayashi, patted his shoulder, and continued, "Indeed, heroes rise among the young. I hear Tsunegakure calls you Konoha's lightning flash. Is there a tale behind that name?" "I once performed a ninjutsu that struck down like lightning from the sky," Hayashi answered calmly. The daimyo laughed with approval and gave a thumbs up. "I must see it firsthand someday." For a moment the two conversed as though no one else was in the hall. The other ninja present were left unnoticed. After an uncertain amount of time, the daimyo seemed to realize the situation. He opened his fan quickly, covering part of his face, apologizing to everyone present. "Forgive me. I was overly enthusiastic in greeting Konoha's ninja and lingered too long. Please forgive my distraction." "Ah, yes, Hayashi, please take a seat along with your companions." Hayashi offered a polite smile and sat at the daimyo's right, bringing Mikoto and Himeji with him. From his seat he surveyed the spacious hall. Though no one openly showed impatience, the assembled ninja clearly wore expressions of discomfort after being ignored. Hayashi paid them little mind. Whether the daimyo genuinely admired him or was intentionally isolating him did not matter. Konoha was a colossal force, one that a handful of guardian ninja could not unsettle. The dispute over the jade seemed almost laughable. With the power of the Hokage behind it, what leverage did the daimyo truly have? Hayashi's attention shifted as his gaze fell upon Oda Ichi, the one who had caused trouble the day before. With the daimyo present she could not speak, but her eyes followed him, as though amused by the entire scene. Once the daimyo returned to his seat he began his formal address. "First, I extend my welcome to all of you in the Tenshukaku. Whether you are from Konoha village, various clans of the capital, or the monks of the Temple of Fire, prosperity in my land would not be possible without you." There was a pause and everyone applauded in unison. Raising his fan for silence, the daimyo continued, "As you know, the previous 12 guardian ninja met tragic ends 3 years ago. Investigations concluded that Tsunegakure bore responsibility." Hayashi and Mikoto shared a glance before turning their eyes to a distant vase. The daimyo's voice continued, "In short, reorganizing the guardian ninja is essential. But there are only 12 positions. How we choose the next group is for all of you to decide." After speaking, he lifted his tea and sipped slowly. True to his words, there were 12 slots and those seats had already been assigned. Yet Hayashi had arrived with an extra person. The daimyo did not want to publicly refuse them, so instead he handed the decision over to the assembly. A rough voice interrupted, "If the slots are already set, why go through all this trouble?" Hayashi turned toward the voice and saw a burly taijutsu specialist step forward. He recognized him immediately. This was Soto, the famed taijutsu expert recommended by the so-called Great General suppressing Japan. Hayashi answered casually, "To serve as the daimyo's guardian ninja one must prove strength, not connections." "Are you suggesting a challenge?" Soto, familiar with the reputation of Konoha's lightning flash, estimated that he might not win. He lowered his stance and said, "No one doubts your strength, but these two beside you." At once the attention fell on Mikoto and Himeji. Hayashi could not help but laugh. Himeji, though the oldest, was only 16. Even from Konoha, how formidable could she appear to someone like Soto? He leaned in and asked quietly, "Himeji, can you handle this?" "No problem," she said with confidence, stepping forward. Sending Himeji was the logical choice. Mikoto had just become a chunin and honestly would have struggled against Soto. But Himeji was already a jonin, her strength more than sufficient to take on a wild card like him. This only highlighted how diluted the guardian ninja ranks had become if even a teenager was called upon. As they stepped forward, Hayashi stood and watched the room fall silent with anticipation. The daimyo sipped tea without concern, unbothered by the upcoming contest. Actually, the daimyo seemed unsure why he had invited the lightning flash to be a guardian ninja himself. If not for the ninja examinations, he would have thought he was under illusion. Resigned to his own curiosity, he attended to the ceremony as best he could. Once he sat again, Hayashi picked up his tea and began chatting with the monk beside him. The monk looked about 30, dressed in traditional robes yet bore a fierce expression, far from a gentle ascetic. "How should I address you?" Hayashi asked. "Just call me Jiku," the monk replied. "You are from the Temple of Fire?" "Yes." Because of its reputation in the original tales, Hayashi had a favorable impression of the Temple of Fire. He was especially intrigued by the ninjutsu Reigo, Senju Koten, a technique reminiscent of the first Hokage's true several thousand hands. In legend it lasted less than 5 seconds before Chiriku fell, but who knew if his true power had been fully unleashed? Hayashi was about to pursue the topic when Himeji suddenly returned. She carried nothing in her hands, but the scent of blood clung to her clothes unmistakably. Everyone knew Konoha ninja were powerful, but they had not expected such strength. Suddenly the entire hall was quiet except for her footsteps. Hayashi raised his teacup and murmured with a hint of amusement, warm tea to decapitate Soto, indeed. _____. Look up ZPHYR on Patreon to get access to chapters in advance. Chapter 341, 341, Festival of Nobility. 1139 words. Since the results are out, everyone may return for now. The Guardian Ninja equipment and the promised ninjutsu will be delivered shortly. The daimyo sat in the main seat, gently fanning himself as he spoke. His voice carried both authority and ease. He clearly did not care what had happened with Soto, and no one present dared question Hayashi again. Whether the Konoha ninja seemed overbearing or unreasonable, they had completely intimidated the entire assembly. Even those with hidden motives would not risk showing them now. Then the daimyo added quietly, "Hayashi, wait a moment, there is something else I wish to discuss with you." This was unmistakable favoritism once more. It seemed the daimyo truly intended to place the Konoha ninja above the others. Hayashi sighed lightly, bid farewell to Jiku, with whom he had gradually become familiar, and remained seated. Only after most of the other ninja departed did the daimyo stand and approach him. Konoha truly deserves its reputation as the strongest village of the 5 great nations. This young lady, you are young miss of the Hyuga clan, right? Your skills are truly remarkable. How is your father doing these days? Thank you for your concern, daimyo. My father is doing very well. The daimyo nodded with satisfaction. After a round of polite conversation he invited them. You all probably have not eaten yet, correct? Please join me for a simple meal. Thank you, daimyo, Hayashi replied politely. The daimyo stood and left behind the main hall screen, leaving his adjutant to guide the group. Please follow me, esteemed ninja of Konoha, the daimyo awaits in the side hall. Led by the adjutant they passed through regal corridors and soon arrived. The daimyo had changed his attire and was already seated. Beside him sat 2 children similar in age to Hayashi. Once everyone was seated the daimyo introduced them. These are my children, Mitsuhide and Tamako. Hayashi greeted them first, and both children politely stood and nodded in acknowledgement. Attendants brought out dishes, and what followed was a meal of relaxed conversation. Thanks to the tune-in exams there was no shortage of topics to discuss. Moreover, Hayashi had lived 2 lifetimes and spent years under Orochimaru's tutelage, refining his conversational skills. He was composed, articulate, and socially adept beyond his years. The daimyo found him endlessly entertaining and grew even more fond of the young ninja. At several points he hinted that Hayashi might one day marry his daughter. Marriage alliances between ninja and noble families were not uncommon, especially during turbulent periods. Yet was it not far too early to discuss such things at 13? For reasons he could not fully grasp, Hayashi felt as though a pair of cold eyes constantly watched him. Whenever he glanced over, Himeji and Mikoto were quietly eating, paying him no attention. Though he did not understand the full implications, he recognized the seriousness. Swiftly he declined, citing his age. The daimyo laughed heartily. Yes, you are indeed young. We can revisit this in a few years. After all, you are to serve as a guardian ninja here for many years. Mitsuhide, Tamako, in the afternoon take Hayashi and the others to tour the capital of the Land of Fire. As for guardian ninja duties, you may begin tomorrow. Understood, father. Mitsuhide had not yet spoken, but Tamako replied immediately, her cheeks flushed bright red. Hayashi could not help but feel uneasy. Seriously, should he start planning a secret escape? After the meal the group exited the Tenshukaku. Outside waited an unremarkable carriage, modest horses suitable for wealthy residents. Aside from 2 attentive and capable guards, everything appeared ordinary. Yet once inside, the carriage was surprisingly elegant. The inner walls were lined with fine mahogany and at the center sat a gilded sandalwood censer with a mutton-fat jade base crafted in the land of artisans. While traveling, Mitsuhide suggested, shall we visit the festival? A festival? Is there one happening now? Hayashi asked. Tamako's eyes sparkled, of course. To celebrate rain, sunshine, harvest, the daimyo's residence holds a festival often. Thank you for the suggestion. Mitsuhide shook his head, modest. It is no trouble, a tradition passed down through our noble family to take guests to see the festival. Everyone silently blinked. So why did the daimyo want his son close to the Konoha ninja? Perhaps he worried for his simple, earnest son. Mitsuhide was exactly as he appeared, formal and sincere in every way. But was that enough to be a daimyo? Well, being a daimyo was essentially a job where one ate, drank, and awaited the end anyway. Maybe anyone could do it. Tamako was vibrant and energetic, the opposite of her brother. Yet her previously cultivated princess image had already faded. Taking advantage of the quiet, Hayashi asked about Oda Ichi. Sister Ichi. Tamako's expression shifted, and she whispered teasingly, so you like that type, no wonder. Like your grandmother's leg. Hayashi rolled his eyes as the cold gaze he had felt earlier returned. I was merely asking if she has had contact with Konoha ninja. She is the daimyo's chief of security, of course she has contact. What about personal relationships beyond that? Mitsuhide suddenly recalled something and added, Sister Ichi used to say she learned her swordsmanship from the legendary White Fang. I don't know if that is true. Hayashi was stunned. If that is true, wouldn't that be a teacher-student connection? He never expected Sakumo, with his thick eyebrows and honest face, to be that skilled. Then why could Kakashi not learn it? If he had mastered it, wouldn't the supporting character have won the heroine? Afterward the carriage wound through many turns until they reached a crowded street. I want to eat shaomai, Tamako declared as they disembarked and headed straight for a food stall. All right, Mitsuhide agreed. It is a tradition passed down to eat shaomai at the festival. He pulled out his wallet from his kimono. Hayashi had wanted to eat too, having hardly eaten at the daimyo's banquet while engrossed in conversation. But after hearing a tradition passed down through the daimyo's family for the third time, he lost his appetite. What nonsense was this? It was just eating shaomai, with no need to preface it like a formal ritual. Hayashi, will you eat? Mitsuhide asked kindly. Well. Hayashi glanced at Mikoto and Himeji, who looked quite interested in the food, and nodded, then let us each have one. All right. Mitsuhide nodded and told the stall owner, Boss, 5 shaomai, please. The gentle stall owner smiled, Lord Mitsuhide, are you visiting the festival with friends today? Yes, they are esteemed guests from Konoha. Oh, so they are Konoha ninja. I did not know Mitsuhide had ninja friends. Yes, the daimyo's family has had ninja as allies for generations. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Novel Wonderland.